Hello readers by eyes and by ears. Today we are continuing with the reading of Devil Venerable Also Wants to Know, or 魔尊也想知道 by Cyan Wings or 青色羽翼. I hope you all are having a good day, and let's go ahead and get started. Chapter 62, Ill-Fated Love. Even when he knew he was looking at an illusion, Yin Hanjiang couldn't strike Wenren E. Even though he knew he would die soon, Yin Hanjiang still didn't wish to be unable to see Wenren E, even if he knew it was all false. Inner demons were a trial because those who were trapped by them didn't want to escape. When reading abusive romance, Wenren E's attention had been on Baili Qingmiao, unable to understand why she was willing to offer up her heart for Wenzhao to stomp on. Yet at this moment, when Yin Hanjiang offered him his own beating heart, the one Wenren E didn't understand was Wenzhao. Faced with this bared heart, how could Wenzhao betray her, hurt her, and make countless demands of her in the name of love? The only reason that he could hurt Baili Qingmiao was Baili Qingmiao's love for him. Now, such a heart was placed before Wenren E. Wenren E brought out the divine blood, gripping it tightly in his hand. Disregarding how he wasn't dressed, he grabbed Yin Hanjiang's hand and pressed it to his face. The invisible barrier that Yin Hanjiang had never been able to cross had been broken by Wenren E. The last step was up to him. Wenren E had seen what Yin Hanjiang was like when he wasn't there. He had been dazzling, impossible to look away from, so much more eye-catching than he had been at Wenren E's side. Wenren E had also seen Yin Hanjiang's heart. He knew these feelings weren't a momentary impulse, but a longing held for 100 years, which had grown too deep to let go of. As for Wenren E's feelings, whether Wenren E could accept Yin Hanjiang like this, whether he could answer such deep emotions, the answer was already obvious. When Yin Hanjiang kissed him and he didn't refuse, when Wenren E was happy to watch in secret and allow Yin Hanjiang to command Xuanyuan's sect, when he had been determined to enter the blood hell yet worried about Yin Hanjiang's mind, when he wanted to give everything good he came across to Yin Hanjiang, when he had first read abusive romance and been unable to accept Yin Hanjiang's madness, the seeds of those things had already been planted in his heart and blossomed. Yin Hanjiang was special, and had been from the start. Even back when Wenren E walked past a mass grave and a tiny hand grabbed the hem of his robes, Yin Hanjiang had entered his heart. Wenren E gripped Yin Hanjiang's hand, placing a gentle kiss on the palm where it had touched his face. Yin Hanjiang, this Venerable permits you to love him. Sect Leader Yeen, will you permit me to love you too? Yet he didn't know that in Yin Hanjiang's eyes there were countless Wenren E's explaining themselves to him, and among them, the real Wenren E looked especially false. Wenren E assumed that Yin Hanjiang's inner demons arose from his death and Yin Hanjiang's longing, and if he revealed his identity, they would be powerless. He didn't know what the scene in Yin Hanjiang's eyes looked like and how hollow his actions seemed. Compared to Wenren E having survived, it seemed more likely that Yin Hanjiang had fallen further into the inner demon's clutches, so that, on top of his sight and hearing, even his sense of touch could not be trusted. No, it's not possible. Yin Hanjiang wanted to pull his hand away. He shook his head. You can't be the Venerable. You're just an inner demon. The words of the Burning Sky Immortal in the second volume of God of Annihilation were far more convincing than the man before him. Yin Hanjiang cocked his head, his eyes dull, appearing completely abnormal as he spoke. It was what my future self said. In the second volume of the books that the Venerable said recorded fate itself, he said the Venerable is dead, and there's no way he could love me either, because the one he loves is... He couldn't say the words Baili Qingmiao. He didn't want to think about her. I do. Seeing that Yin Hanjiang believed the books more than him, Wenren brought out Abusive Romance and the first and third volumes of God of Annihilation. You saw me obtain these books with your own eyes. An inner demon couldn't bring out a book you've never read before. Open them and see for yourself. The plot has already changed. Fate can be changed. Wenren also brought out an ordinary dark blue robe and put it on. He clutched the divine blood tight in one hand, hooking Yin Hanjiang's waist with the other so that he couldn't escape. If Wenren wanted something, he wouldn't give the other party the chance to refuse. He was more certain than ever that the Wenren in Abusive Romance never loved Baili Qingmiao at all. Could he possibly admire her from a distance, content just to watch her live happily with Wenzhao? That was absurd. Wenren love would always be selfish. If he couldn't have the object of his desires, then he would rather burn everything to the ground than back off quietly. Yin Hanjiang, it was me who drank wine with you that day at the spiritual spring. I've heard your feelings. Wenren pressed his forehead against Yin Hanjiang's. If you like this Venerable, then you're not allowed to look at any more illusions. You understand? What? Yin Hanjiang couldn't believe it. Since that day, when he had responded to that inner demon, it was no longer an illusion he was seeing, but his Venerable? He didn't answer Wenren his mind awhirl, feeling as though his skull was splitting open. He shoved Wenren aside, clutching his head in both hands. It was as if he was being torn into pieces. One of them was telling him, just believe what's before your eyes and be happy, even if it might be a lie. Believe that your Venerable loves you. Another was saying, how could Wenren possibly love you? He's always loved Baili Qingmiao. You saw how he gave his life to protect her at the blood hell. Yet another said, they're all illusions. Not a single one can be believed. Seeing Yin Hanjiang's soul break into pieces, each about to burst from his body, Wenren didn't dare push him any further. He sent a stream of chaos energy into Yin Hanjiang's body in order to stabilize his soul. He didn't understand. Yin Hanjiang liked him and he had returned it. An element of the heart should be created from the heart. So, if he expressed his feelings, Yin Hanjiang's turmoil should be resolved and everything should work out. So, why did it end up this way? Which is real? Which is fake? Yin Hanjiang's hair was in disarray, his eyes red, on the verge of madness. Clutching the divine blood, Wenren cried, Yin Hanjiang, look at me. Look at this Venerable. Yin Hanjiang calmed down a bit, his gaze falling on Wenren face. He turned his head slightly, seeing the red stone in Wenren hand. What's this? He put a hand atop the stone. The divine blood, Wenren answered. I've seen this stone before. Yin Hanjiang placed both hands over it, his eyes hazy. Is it real? He said in a trembling voice. I obtained it in the blood hell. Before Wenren had a chance to explain the whole complicated story of the divine blood's origins, Yin Hanjiang had already confused it with the stone Wenren had thrown Baili Qingmiao in his memories. The Venerable will give it to Baili Qingmiao, right? He said. The Venerable went to the blood hell for it, didn't he? Not entirely. Before Wenren could finish speaking, a despairing laugh came from Yin Hanjiang's mouth, along with a mouthful of blood. His soul, which had nearly shattered, slowly merged back together, but not in the form that Wenren wanted. Yin Hanjiang seemed to hear his Venerable say words like love, primordial God, and fate near his ears, but he couldn't hear clearly. His eyes blurred, and a roar filled his ears. What was real? Oh yes, his Venerable had said that the words of the book were real. Yin Hanjiang grabbed the volume of abusive romance that Wenren had left on the ground. Flipping it to a random page in the back, he saw the words. Yin Hanjiang grabbed Baili Qingmiao by the neck, his face twisted with hate. He spat. If the Venerable died for you, shouldn't you accompany him? In that moment, Yin Hanjiang couldn't hear anything, and he couldn't see anything beside those words. He quickly read on, seeing how he failed to kill Baili Qingmiao, how she leapt into the blood hell with the divine blood in her hands, regaining her divinity. At the moment she merged with the divine nature, Baili Qingmiao thought that it was thanks to Wenren E giving her this stone at the moment before his death that she was able to survive. Enough! Seeing that Yin Hanjiang was reading the pages that hadn't been revised yet, he hadn't heard a word he said. Wenren E snatched back the book. With a light tap on Yin Hanjiang's forehead, he sent chaos energy into his body, forcibly suppressing his rampant spiritual energy. Yin Hanjiang lost consciousness, his brow still knit. Wenren E picked him up and, in a flash, appeared in Zhongli Qian's room. How could this happen? Wenren E laid Yin Hanjiang down on Zhongli Qian's bed. Zhongli Qian set down the jade slip in his hand. Without asking what had happened, he felt Yin Hanjiang's pulse, and after a long moment he asked, Sect Master, how come Sect Leader Yin's emotional state was suddenly thrown into disarray and he lost the ability to control his power, which now reaches the immortal realm, his spiritual energy running wild and his soul nearly being destroyed? This Venerable also wants to know. Hey, the title. Wenren E still held onto Yin Hanjiang. He didn't understand why things had turned out like this. Wasn't Yin Hanjiang just suffering from inner demons? If his inner turmoil was resolved, shouldn't the inner demons vanish? Was this not the source of Yin Hanjiang's turmoil, after all? Zhongli Qian was silent for a moment, then took off his blindfold, looking at Wenren E's face. Ignoring how Baili Qingmiao popped up in his vision, he observed Wenren E's expression and was dumbfounded. Wenren E was probably unaware of what he looked like right now. He gazed at Yin Hanjiang, his eyes filled with concern, tenderness, and fear. The Lord of Demons had never feared anything in his life, but at this moment he feared losing Yin Hanjiang. Did you say something to Sect Leader Yin? Zhongli Qian asked, replacing his blindfold. This Venerable wishes to become cultivation partners with Yin Hanjiang for the rest of our lives. Wenren E spoke not to Zhongli Qian, but to Yin Hanjiang, but unfortunately the man couldn't hear him. Zhongli Qian understood everything. With his usual calm manner, he said, Sect Master, the first time I met Sect Leader Yin, I saw signs that he was in danger of deviating. I advised him not to desire too strongly, but he answered that he wouldn't desire. I have little knowledge of love, but after reading books and poems for all these years, and after seeing how Miss Baili was ensnared by it, I've come to some understanding. The world is filled with those who seek love, and how many of them can refrain from desire? Those who can either don't love strongly enough or don't dare to pursue. Which does the Sect Master think Yin Hanjiang is? He probably didn't dare. In these few days of observing Yin Hanjiang, Wenren E had discovered that he seemed to be certain of something, that Wenren E could not possibly love him. If he said he did, it must be an inner demon, the product of his own fantasies. A lie. Sect Master, either great joy or great sorrow can both disrupt someone's composure. Sect Leader Yin has already sustained the pain of losing his beloved, and has never dared to imagine that his Venerable could return his feelings, and is also beset by inner demons. If he were to meet with great joy, it would be like a piece of porcelain going through flames to cold water. Even though the heat would be extinguished, the porcelain would shatter from the shock. Yin Hanjiang's feelings weren't like Wenren E's, powerful and unwavering, impossible to shake. He'd only had the courage to say the words hidden in his heart for so many years to an illusion. If it weren't for the inner demons, and Wenren E had gently guided Yin Hanjiang around, warmed him up gradually, it was possible he could believe it, but he had acted too suddenly. Heat and cold could counteract each other, but how could anything also withstand such a forceful will? Has the Sect Master heard the saying, a desire too deep is not fated to last long? Protector Shu has amused herself in the mortal realm for many years and tasted all it has to offer. So why has she never given her heart to anyone? Because love's power to harm is too great. Yin Hanjiang has risen in power due to his obsession, but the backlash has become more powerful in turn. The cosmos is heartless, and the Tao is dispassionate. The path that will lead one to heaven is the path of indifference, not the path of obsession. This Venerable understands. This Venerable was wrong. He hadn't considered Yin Hanjiang's personality and the fragile state of his mind. He hadn't thought about whether he would be able to accept such information. Wenren pressed his lips against Yin Hanjiang's burning forehead. But this Venerable will not accept his mistakes. He sent a message talisman to alter Master Shrr. Bring Yao Jiaping to this Venerable. Since his heart had been moved, he could no longer let go. Yin Hanjiang must accompany Wenren in this world and the next. He wouldn't allow him to escape in death so easily. Chapter 63. Soul Communion. Yow Jeeah-ping hadn't been skinned yet. Yin Hanjiang had asked for an intact skin, but Yao Jiaping's throat had been pierced by him. In order to accomplish the task the new sect leader had assigned him, Tsong-sheen first carefully treated Yao Jiaping's injury with elixirs, then soaked him in medicinal water. Only after he soaked for 48 hours could the procedure to steal his skin be used. Otherwise, it might tear. Tsong-sheen had always been a follower in Xuanyuan sect and never been entrusted with something this important. Today, Protector Shu and Altar Master Zhongli had been reprimanded by sect leader Yeen while he had been given a task, so he actually felt rather cheerful. Ever since he succeeded Qingmiao and took over the Hellfire Pavilion, Tsong-sheen had been panicking. Altar Master Yuan, who had recommended him, had been killed by sect leader Yeen for colluding with the righteous sects, and Protector Chu had brought back a ghost cultivator with a flesh body named Su-huai, saying that when Su-huai's cultivation improved, she'd help him remove Tsong-sheen and take over the Hellfire Pavilion. Plus, the new altar master sect leader Yeen appointed, Zhongli Qian, saw Su-huai as his disciple. Tsong-sheen had been shedding tears in his heart, afraid he'd be replaced any day. There was nothing good about being in a high position. The table seemed to be turning, though. Sect leader Yeen was starting to value him after taking over the sect. He was determined to impress sect leader Yeen with his capabilities. Cough, cough. Yet it hadn't been 6 hours, and he'd just gotten Yao Jiaping soaked properly when he received a message from Sect Master Wenren. The Sect Master was back? Then who was he supposed to listen to now? Tsong-sheen was too scared to offend either of them. He had no choice but to pick up the half-dead Yao Jiaping and bring him to Wenren. For some reason, immediately after his return, Wenren was in Altar Master Zhongli's room. Were the two plotting together in order to take back the sect from sect leader Yeen? It was time for him to make his stand. Tsong-sheen decided. He had to convey this information to sect leader Yeen, so he would be prepared. Then, when the time came, Qingmiao, Shu Yanyan, Zhongli Qian, and Su-huai would all... While fantasizing, Tsong-sheen walked into the room and saw sect leader Yeen was heavily injured, lying in Wenren-'s lap. He started coughing louder. Shut up. The Lord of Demons wore a blue robe, his imposing presence stronger than ever. He didn't even glance at Tsong-sheen. His eyes locked on Yin Hanjiang's face, brushing his fingertips over the corner of Yin Hanjiang's mouth. The ever-vigilant Zhongli Qian pulled Tsong-sheen aside and transmitted to him. Don't disturb the sect master right now. Yao Jiaping is still alive, right? He doesn't want me to receive favor from the Lord? Tsong-sheen thought. But he still acted fearful as he transmitted back. Thank you for your advice. He hasn't died. Zhongli Qian turned toward Tsong-sheen. His eyes were blindfolded, yet Tsong-sheen had a feeling like all his thoughts were exposed in front of him. It must be his imagination. It was just the moonlight shining through a window and illuminating Zhongli Qian's face that was giving him such a strange feeling. Tsong-sheen transmitted. Why is Altar Master Zhongli looking at me like that? Is something wrong? Nothing. I just didn't expect your mental transmissions would also have coughing, Zhongli Qian said. Shrr Tsong-sheen, ... It was just a habit. Since he cultivated the 7 human sufferings, he naturally had to experience suffering at every moment. Even if his sickness qi had been sucked away by Baili Qingmiao, he at least had to act sick. Shu Tsong-sheen avoided looking at Zhongli Qian, scared his intentions would be seen through. Staring at the sect master, he saw Wenren dip his head, drawing closer and closer to Yin Hanjiang's face, until Shu Tsong-sheen's face and ears flushed red. He stared unblinking, trying to figure out what the sect master was actually doing, but Wenren-E's long hair slid down and blocked the 2 faces from view. It took a while for Wenren to raise his head again and say in a deeply pained voice, "This Venerable was too hasty." Shu Tsong-sheen backed up into a corner. Terrified, he bit down on his fingers, not letting himself make any noise. He had glimpsed a little through the Venerable's hair. What was the Venerable doing? Sucking away Yin Hanjiang's power? Altar Master Jong-lee stood at one side and acted like he was blind. Well, he was blind. Wenren didn't give Shu Tsong-sheen a glance. He extended a hand at Yao Jiaping, who flew across the room to him. He planted his hand on Yao Jiaping's skull and, with a casual yank, removed his soul from his body. This is... Zhongli Qian couldn't hold back his doubts. This Venerable learned this technique in the blood hell, Wenren said, distracted. It can extract all of a person's memories and abilities and make them one's own. It's just an unorthodox technique, not worth mentioning. There were 180,000 demonic gods sealed in the blood hell, so Wenren hadn't had an easy time of it for the past year and a half. The blood demon had destroyed the marks on his soul, which was equivalent to destroying a blood cultivator's foundation, and he had also been impaled by the weapons of 9 experts before falling into the blood hell. He had lost a lot of strength. He'd been betting on that stone that had protected Baili Qingmiao in the book and helped her awaken her divine nature. As long as he obtained the divine blood, Wenren could cultivate within the blood hell and absorb the chaos energy. Indeed, after he obtained the divine blood, it shielded his soul, but simultaneously, the divine nature hidden at the bottom of the blood hell called to it, constantly dragging Wenren toward the depths of the sea. In that year and a half, Wenren awakened to a path of divinity from the divine blood, absorbing chaos energy while resisting the divine nature. Thousands of demonic gods drifted at the bottom of the blood hell, all desiring to kill Wenren and return to the cultivation world in his place. Wenren continued to advance in combat, killing many demonic gods and obtaining their techniques. He'd wanted to return way earlier, but the divine nature tugged at the divine blood, preventing his escape. It was only a few days ago that the power of the divine nature had suddenly weakened, and Wenren had found his chance. Gathering all his power, he broke out of the blood hell. Later, he learned from the book how Baili Qingmiao's heart had been crushed at the blood hell. Having come into proximity of the divine nature, she fell under its control, becoming obsessed with ending her life. It was only when Yin Hanjiang's killing intent woke Baili Qingmiao and her will strengthened, had the power of the divine nature and blood weakened. Yin Hanjiang truly had done well. He didn't turn Baili Qingmiao into lamp oil because of his resentment, and had even inadvertently awakened her will and given Wenren a chance to escape the blood hell. Yao Jiaping thought of himself highly, believing his medical skills were without competition. He never could have imagined that Wenren would pay no mind to whether or not he was willing to treat Yin Hanjiang, only requiring his capability to do so. It was also because Wenren knew there was a cure for Yin Hanjiang's inner demons that he suggested he could receive treatment first, then steal Yao Jiaping's skin. But when he heard Yin Hanjiang's reason, he hadn't been able to control himself. He had been too self-centered. Wenren calmly took in Yao Jiaping's memories, skipping over his time with his lover, and how every time he saw a woman who resembled his lover, he would feel unbearable pain and could only use a warm body to relive the time he spent with her. If you asked Wenren, this was nothing but a defilement of their love. No one could replace Yin Hanjiang. The very idea was an insult to him. Quickly, he found the method to heal Yin Hanjiang. Yin Hanjiang's problem wasn't with his body, but his heart. There was nothing wrong with his cultivation. His mental state just couldn't control his level of power. Immense power required immense mental fortitude. Once one's mental control couldn't keep up with their realm, they would suffer chi deviation. It usually came in two forms: going berserk, indiscriminately attacking anyone around them in order to relieve their rampaging spiritual essence, or suppressing their spiritual essence inside their bodies so that it didn't harm anyone else even as they suffered. Yin Hanjiang was obviously the latter. Repression had just become a habit for him. Such an injury needed to be attacked from both sides. He needed to sort out his spiritual essence, while at the same time use a soul communion technique to seek out the source of his suffering and resolve his inner demons. Fixing his spiritual essence would be easy. Wenren-E's chaos energy could transform into all other forms of energy, bringing their primordial form. However chaotic Yin Hanjiang's spiritual essence was, it would behave in the face of Wenren-E's power. Wenren stuffed Yao Jiaping's soul back into his body and tossed him to Tsong-sheen again, so he could hurry up and use the skin-sealing technique while the man was still breathing. He gave Qian a look, and Qian quickly left the room, putting up an array behind him and leaving the space to the two of them. Wenren carefully laid Yin Hanjiang on the bed and bent over him until his forehead was pressed against Yin Hanjiang's. As he had no physical body right now, his body and soul were one and the same. In a flash of light, Wenren vanished, leaving only his blue robe draping over Yin Hanjiang. Yao Jiaping's experience told Wenren that he couldn't heal Yin Hanjiang's heart on his first try. He would have to use the soul communion technique multiple times, so this time, what he had to do was find what was making Yin Hanjiang lose control within his memories and help him return to normal for now. Afterwards, he could continue on, filling Yin Hanjiang's memories with Wenren isn't dead, Wenren loves you, until when Yin Hanjiang finally accepted it, Wenren could appear before him and say those words in person. He followed Yin Hanjiang's memories to a few hours earlier, seeing his confrontation with himself. This time, through Yin Hanjiang's memory, Wenren finally saw how many illusions were plaguing Yin Hanjiang at the time. They each had different expressions, some loving, some cold, some calm, some overbearing. They all resembled the real person, but were missing something. Seeing such a scene, Wenren had to laugh at Yin Hanjiang's foolishness and his own arrogance. Yin Hanjiang was seeing at least a dozen of him. In such a condition, how was he meant to distinguish which was real and which were fake? It was too difficult. He saw how after the him in the memory confessed to Yin Hanjiang broke down. He could easily change the words he had said, but he didn't. He didn't want to casually change Yin Hanjiang's memories and didn't want to wipe away his own words. He wouldn't touch anything that had already happened. In the memory, Yin Hanjiang flipped through abusive romance, his mouth filling with blood, unable to see or hear. Only now, inside Yin Hanjiang's soul, did Wenren understand just how much agony he had been in at that point. He hadn't not wanted to believe, but it was impossible for him to. When he couldn't trust his sight, hearing, and touch, how could he believe anything that happened to him? Watching as he kneeled on the ground, reading, Wenren walked up and put his arms around this Yin Hanjiang who finally neglected to hide his own weakness in front of him. He said quietly, "You can take me as an inner demon. I won't force you to believe anymore. Right now, just allow me to say a few words, and just listen to me for a bit. Don't push me away." The soul communion only affected the soul's memories. Since everything had already happened, Yin Hanjiang wouldn't fall apart further because of it. Yin Hanjiang paused, feeling the warmth of the person behind him. Without anyone pushing him to believe anything, Yin Hanjiang leaned back against him and closed his eyes. Wenren E tenderly kissed Yin Hanjiang's forehead, holding his ice-cold fingers. You don't need to believe, but at least have some hope. Hope that I'm still alive, okay? Think about it. Almost nothing in the world can harm this Venerable. Even hearing the words, his Venerable was alive, brought Yin Hanjiang unparalleled joy. With his eyes closed, he nodded obediently. Seeing he was willing to believe this fact, Wenren E relaxed. Right now, Yin Hanjiang's soul was wounded, so staying within it for too long would cause further damage. Realizing his time was almost up, but there were many things he hadn't yet explained, he had an idea. Yin Hanjiang, he said quietly, you opened the wrong page. When you wake up, open Abusive Romance and read the parts that this Venerable has changed. After saying those words, Wenren E left Yin Hanjiang's body, returning to reality. After bringing Yin Hanjiang back to his room and gently laying him down on his bed, he left behind his 3 books and departed. Baili Qingmiao had lost count of how many times she'd been scared awake. During the day, she'd been so terrified by Yin Hanjiang that her fever had worsened and she'd been having nightmares all this time. Right now, she finally felt a bit better and blearily got up, wanting to get a drink of water, but saw a shadowed figure standing at the head of her bed. Senior Wenren! The sweat that had broken out across Baili Qingmiao's body eased her fever a lot. This Venerable came in order to tell you something. You don't need to understand. Just hear it, Wenren E said. I'm listening, said Baili Qingmiao. Senior Wenren, are you actually alive? This Venerable is alive, Wenren E said. What this Venerable needs you to hear is, Wenren E loves Yin Hanjiang. Chapter 64. The Moon Behind the Clouds. Yin Hanjiang awoke in Wenren E's bedroom. He still felt lingering pain in his body from his spiritual energy running wild, but it had mostly healed. His emotions were strangely calm. It was as if he'd had a long dream in which his Venerable had returned. His joy and pain warring with each other, he'd had a chi deviation and nearly died. But at least, upon waking, he could remember 2 things. His Venerable was alive, and very few things on this earth could overcome him. Yin Hanjiang was at peace just knowing that Wenren E was alive. As for everything else, he didn't want to remember right now. There were 3 books placed by the bed, the first being Abusive Romance. Yin Hanjiang didn't touch any of them. He grabbed for each of the inner demons before him, and only after finding they each were formless illusions did his heart settle. He didn't feel like he could face these inner demons right now. When he thought that his Venerable could be hiding among them, he felt uncomfortable all over. In his years of following Wenren E, enduring had long become a habit. He had cut loose excessively over the past few days and didn't know how much his Venerable had seen. Thinking about it, Yin Hanjiang tasted blood in the back of his throat. No, there were times in the dream when his Venerable could not be touched. He couldn't tell the real one apart from the inner demons by touching them. Panicked, Yin Hanjiang looked at the illusions, who all looked back with focused and tender gazes. Under all their eyes, Yin Hanjiang felt like he had nowhere to hide, wishing he could vanish on the spot. He grabbed his arms, clawing lines of blood across his skin, managing to calm himself. He thought back to the events of last night. Actually, his thoughts were muddled, and he only remembered that he had lost control, and though his Venerable had said a lot to him, he didn't remember any of it, aside from 1 sentence. You read the wrong page. You have to look at the revision, which it seemed his Venerable had repeated by his ear many times. After he calmed down from last night, he had gradually grown to believe that Wenren E was alive. At the beginning, his emotions were too strong, aggravating his inner demons. But now that he had calmed down, he could face everything rationally. His grief had faded away, replaced by joy. Yin Hanjiang did his best to force a calm and reserved expression and picked up abusive romance. A note fell out from within it. I'm at Altar Master Zhonglee's place, not among the inner demons. It was signed, from Wenren E. Yin Hanjiang instantly relaxed, his posture becoming more casual. He leaned back on the bed with the book in his lap, and, thinking about how his Venerable was alive and had already returned, joy flooded his heart, and he couldn't keep from smiling. Does this Venerable return make you that happy? Said an inner demon, leaning against the bed. Yin Hanjiang didn't look at it. He opened the book, beginning to read from the first page. The story had already been revised as to be unrecognizable, and the original plot could only be gleaned from old comments. But Yin Hanjiang still managed to find out from years-old comments and the unrevised portion what the him in the book had done after his Venerable's death. He had really outdone his current self. When he thought that his Venerable had read this book over 40 years ago, Yin Hanjiang felt like lighting himself on fire. His qi roiled inside his body, and after only a bit he couldn't go on. He shut the book, reciting the clear mind spell. Fortunately, Yin Hanjiang wasn't here, and Yin Hanjiang was able to maintain his composure. If it was like last night, he would probably lose his mind again. He was just reading a book, so if he couldn't continue, he could pause for a moment and take it slowly. After a while of controlling his breathing, he was about to read on when he heard a knock at his door. Altar Master Shrr's voice came from beyond it. Sect Leader Yeen, your subordinate has a report to make. About Wenren E. Yin Hanjiang was going to ignore him until he heard his Venerable's name. He ended up hiding the book and letting him in. Tsong-sheen walked to the desk, facing the frosty Sect Leader Yeen. Sect Leader, this subordinate discovered last night that Sect Master Wenren wasn't dead. Yin Hanjiang said. Tsong-sheen saw that Yin Hanjiang had no reaction, but thought of how difficult it had been for him to work up the courage to come here. It was time to make a stand. Zhongli Qian had already thrown in his lot with Wenren E, and if Tsong-sheen continued to follow the Lord of Demons, he would have no future. He could only choose Yin Hanjiang. Remembering Zhongli Qian, Tsong-shoo-eh, Yanyan, and Su Huai, who had eyes on his position, Tsong-sheen thought that he had been afraid for his whole life and ought to work up his courage for something. The sect leader may be unaware that Wenren E and Altar Master Zhongli have acted against you last night. What do you say? A vicious light entered Yin Hanjiang's eyes. If Tsong-sheen dared to slander his Venerable for him, his life was over. Oblivious to Yin Hanjiang's murderous intent, Tsong-sheen continued. Last night, when the Lord ordered me to bring Yao Jiaping to Altar Master Zhongli's room, I saw him doing something to sect leader while you were unconscious. Does the sect leader remember this? No, Yin Hanjiang said. Watching Tsong-sheen's sickly face, he reached for his neck and placed his fingers against his arteries. What did you see? At the time, Wenren E's hair blocked my sight, but I could see that he must have been stealing your spiritual essence. He roughly described what he had seen through Wenren E's hair. Gesturing to his lips, he said, He was stealing your spiritual essence through your mouth. Sect leader, you must check the violet palace of your dantian. He may have done something underhanded. It wasn't Tsong-sheen coughing this time, but Yin Hanjiang. After hearing Tsong-sheen's words, his face went bright red, and he started coughing furiously. He withdrew his hand from Tsong-sheen's neck in order to cover his mouth. Tsong-sheen... ... Had he given his sickness qi to sect leader Yeen? No, it couldn't be. His sickness qi had been stolen by Miss Baili, so that he had lost most of his power and was barely even sick now, having to pretend to cough. This lord understands, Yin Hanjiang said after recovering. You can go now. Sure Tsong-sheen wanted to say more, but Yin Hanjiang had turned away and was no longer looking at him. He could only leave dejectedly. But when he was at the door, he heard Yin Hanjiang say, "Do you have any wood or other material that can be made into a mask?" "I do." Sure Tsong-sheen took out a top-grade piece of underworld iron from his storage item, something he was saving for crafting a bonded weapon when he reached Mahayana. "It doesn't need to be so... whatever. You can go." Yin Hanjiang took the piece of iron and shooed Sure Tsong-sheen away. Shaping it with his hands and the burning sky drum's fire, he very quickly turned it into a ghost mask. He put it on and, with his face covered, he felt his heart gradually calm. This time, with sufficient mental preparation, he opened the book and picked out scenes involving Wenren to read. Baili Qingmiao's time with Wenzhao at their sect and her 30 years of wandering had nothing to do with him, so he skimmed over all of them. In less than 2 hours, Yin Hanjiang had reached the last page of the revision. He saw Wenren standing by Baili Qingmiao's bed as he said to her, "What this Venerable needs you to hear is, Wenren loves Yin Hanjiang." He had heard these words last night, but with his thoughts in disarray, he didn't know whether he should believe it. More importantly, Yin Hanjiang had been almost certain that Wenren liked Baili Qingmiao at the time, and in his confusion, he had suffered a Qi deviation. Now he had read the original story and comments and knew this was from before the revision, and had never happened. He had also received Sure Tsong-sheen's report, and with the comforting presence of the mask on his face, as he saw Wenren say these words to Baili Qingmiao, his emotions were different. He held the mask, afraid of it falling, and read on with his heart pounding wildly. Baili Qingmiao said, trembling, "If Senior Wenren has romantic intentions with sect leader Yeen, why not say it to him directly?" With a bitter smile, Wenren said, "He probably won't believe me." Baili Qingmiao, thinking that Wenren wanted to ask her about romantic matters, spoke considerately after some thought. "It may be hard to convey your true intentions through words. Often, actions will reassure someone more, like me. Never mind. I'm a bad example. None of my Shishong's actions could reassure me." "Your example could serve as a warning," Wenren said. Baili Qingmiao instantly felt heartbroken. However, she was someone who liked helping people, so recounted her experiences with her Shishong, getting closer and closer to tears as she went on. "This Venerable knows," Wenren nodded. "I'll keep your experiences in mind. That's why I wanted to say it to you clearly, because I want him to understand. Whether it's the reserved Yin Hanjiang or the reckless and carefree Yin Hanjiang, this Venerable will love them both. Yin Hanjiang is Yin Hanjiang. He need not hide himself." Reading these words, Yin Hanjiang felt like he was burning up inside. His body had always been cold, which hadn't been resolved even by the snow flame. He knew it was the fault of his deep obsession and the inner demons tormenting him. Yet reading this passage, his body felt hot, like his blood was boiling underneath his skin. He flipped to the comments. "Weird. In the original story, I was always scared of Yin Hanjiang, but why do I think he's kind of cute now? Using the protagonist's dress to wipe his sword and hands, does he think the little flower is a rag?" Better a rag than lamp oil. I also think he's become a bit cute. Man, what have I experienced over these years? I've changed from an innocent little girl into a crazy woman. When I see a psychotic freak, I'm not just not scared, I want to say, "Eek! Be more psycho!" Hello? Are you still discussing the previous chapter? Go read the new one immediately. This is major. In this Mary Sue romance story, the second male lead confessed to the female lead's face. Huh, what kind of crazy words are you saying? I'm reading immediately. Just read the newest chapter. I went back to look at the work's tags, and the author hasn't just revised. She changed the romance category from traditional to uncertain. What does uncertain mean? It means anything is possible. Hold on. How come you all are unshaken by Wenren E's declaration of love? Where's the screaming? Where's the rejection? Where's the shock that this story has become a danmei? You haven't seen the next thread over, huh? The one discussing the hidden romantic threads in abusive romance, original and revised text. They've already analyzed everything thoroughly. Back from reading it, and I feel enlightened. So Yin Hanjiang liked Wenren E ever since the original, and that's why he went crazy? I used to be scared of him, but now all of a sudden I want to hug the poor thing. It's no longer considered the original and revised editions. It's a different life. Go check out the next thread. There's even fan fiction of the two. If you're too slow, it'll be deleted. Back with the nosebleed. Yin Hanjiang being vicious to other people and obedient in front of his master is so adorable. I'm here for more. I can't say what I want from the Demon Lord and his vicious little wolf. If I say any more, I'll get reported. Yin Hanjiang, ... Chapter 65. A Blow to the Head. Within Wenren E's room, Yin Hanjiang's emotions were hidden behind his mask. His finger ran under the 4 words, "This Venerable is alive," many times, and gradually, a wild joy rose within him. His memories were still chaotic, difficult to distinguish from fantasy, but what he had seen last night told Yin Hanjiang that Wenren E was still alive, and Tsong-sheen said he'd seen him, and even this book, which he took as truth, told him his Venerable still walked the earth. This was more important than anything else, 1,000 times more important than whether or not his Venerable returned his love. He wanted to see his Venerable immediately. Even though such fierce emotions made his blood roil in his veins and strengthened his inner demons, he didn't care. Yin Hanjiang picked up the note. Right, his Venerable said he was at Zhongli Qian's place. Clutching it in his hand, he flew to the meeting room in the main hall, finding Zhongli Qian working on his own. Surrounding him were 4 or 5 Wenren E's, each holding the divine blood. Seeing such a scene, Yin Hanjiang stopped in his tracks. Why were things like this? He knew his Venerable was alive, but the inner demons would hardly vanish so easily. He was now unable to tell which was the real Wenren E. Sensing Yin Hanjiang's arrival, Zhongli Qian calmly left the meeting room, giving the two their space. His departure made Yin Hanjiang more anxious, though. Without anyone around to help, he couldn't distinguish the illusions. At this point, Wenren E spoke up. This Venerable would be solid when holding the divine blood. Yin Hanjiang rushed forward, gently clasping the man's hand, and could find it could be touched. Venerable! He got to one knee, his voice choked. You're still alive. For a moment, Yin Hanjiang was unable to speak. Blood welled up in the back of his throat, but, not wanting his Venerable to notice, he swallowed it back down. He had neglected propriety last night. He absolutely could not let his Venerable see him in such a sorry state. Wenren E pulled him to his feet, saying solemnly, Yin Hanjiang, I don't like to see you kneel. He slowly took off Yin Hanjiang's mask. With a soft smile, he said, Did you see my words? Yes. Yin Hanjiang only got out one word before blood poured from his mouth. He pressed a hand over it, but it dripped between his fingers. Yin Hanjiang! Wenren E hadn't expected their next meeting to go like this. He assumed they could at least have contact normally, but Yin Hanjiang was too good at repressing, and he nearly hadn't noticed his pain. He put a hand to Yin Hanjiang's chest, pouring chaos energy into his body, finding that his spiritual essence was a mess. He had treated him last night, but their meeting today had hurt Yin Hanjiang further. Venerable, this subordinate is fine, Yin Hanjiang said. Your subordinate is just happy. Seeing how he pushed himself, Wenren E quickly placed the mask back on his face. With that barrier, Yin Hanjiang relaxed a bit. He berated himself inside. It should be a joyful reunion, yet he... Don't force yourself. Wenren E placed a hand over Yin Hanjiang's eyes. so he no longer needed to look at him. In the darkness, Yin Hanjiang heard Wenren E speak. I was hasty yesterday and damaged your foundation. If your mind is disrupted, it will aggravate your inner demons. In this realm, you don't have immortal essence to sustain yourself, so your inner demons are not resolved. Your recovery will be difficult. The subordinate is useless, Yin Hanjiang said, clenching his fists. Who says you're useless? Wenren E said. During this Venerable's departure, you've done very well. You subjugated the 2 protectors and 4 altar masters, gained their confidence, and kept Xuanyuan's sect from falling into chaos. You also reformed the message carriers, uncovering those with ill intentions towards Xuanyuan's sect. No one could have done better than you. With his eyes covered, Yin Hanjiang didn't need to distinguish Wenren E from the crowd of illusions, and with the mask covering his face, his expressions were hidden from Wenren E. These 2 shields helped him settle his emotions. He spoke the question he was most concerned about. Venerable, why do you need the divine blood to solidify your body? Wenren E went roughly over his time in the blood hell. Yin Hanjiang immediately understood. It was equivalent to those righteous cultivators having destroyed Wenren E's flesh body so that without it, Wenren E could only cultivate his soul. Even though absorbing the chaos energy had increased his power immensely, he was still inconvenienced. Learning of Wenren E's experiences over the past year and a half, Yin Hanjiang's hate for Wenzhao deepened. Underneath the mask, his expression grew twisted. The power of the divine blood must be saved for helping Baili Qingmiao merge with the divine nature, so I cannot use it as I please. For a time, you still need to manage Xuanyuan's sect. As for the matter of the blood demon, you can do whatever you feel like, Wenren E said. From the soul communion last night, Wenren E knew Yin Hanjiang had a lot of built-up frustration, having always lived in Wenren E's shadow. If he didn't stand alone before others and gain confidence, he couldn't overcome his inner demons. He could only let Yin Hanjiang vent his feelings, for which Wenzhao and the blood demon were the best targets. Hearing that Wenren E was relying on his protection, Yin Hanjiang straightened up. Yes, he could not let the members of Xuanyuan's sect discover his Venerable's weakness. He must protect his Venerable. Seeing Yin Hanjiang regain his spirit, Wenren E said, Last night was an urgent situation, so I had to use the soul communion technique to temporarily calm your spirit. This technique can only be used once in 15 days, and must be repeated several more times for you to fully recover. Are you willing for me to enter your soul again? It is this subordinate's privilege to have the Venerable expend his power to save me, so how could I refuse? Yin Hanjiang said. Wenren E sighed lightly. Yin Hanjiang, he said helplessly, I don't want you to call yourself a subordinate, or me Venerable. Yin Hanjiang froze. He was supposed to call Wenren E's name directly? How could he? Wenren E didn't want to pressure Yin Hanjiang. It's fine for now, he said. If after your inner demons are cured, you continue to refer to me this way, I won't be happy. Wenren E knew Yin Hanjiang was tormented by not being able to tell him apart from illusions, and also didn't want him to see his more vicious side. I need to cultivate to stabilize my soul, so I'll be at the spiritual spring for the next few days. You can act on your own. When the time comes for the next soul communion, or when you want to see me, come to the spiritual spring. Of course, Yin Hanjiang wanted to see Wenren E at every possible moment, but he knew he was in an unstable condition, and if he pushed himself, he would cause his Venerable more trouble. He nodded, then felt a warmth in one of his palms as it came into contact with something soft. After gently kissing Yin Hanjiang's palm, Wenren E took abusive romance from his lapel and vanished. After a long while, Yin Hanjiang slowly removed his mask. He stood alone in the hall, his expression chilling, sometimes smiling, and sometimes dark. He thought about a lot of things, but also seemed to have thought nothing at all. He walked up to a desk, which still held the information about the message carriers that Zhongli Qian hadn't had time to handle. Yin Hanjiang had previously ordered the message carriers to investigate the whereabouts of the scum who had slandered Xuanyuan's sect. Having just gotten their rakes cleaned up by Yin Hanjiang, The message carrier showed impressive work ethic and had sent reports about more than a dozen people in just 1 day's time. Yin Hanjiang picked up the list and left, brushing past Zhongli Qian, who was standing in the doorway. Zhongli Qian... ... 3 days later, Yin Hanjiang returned, overflowing with murderous intent. Dragging a few righteous disciples behind him, he tossed them to Zhongli Qian. I have brought people. Soon I will get Wenzhao here too. You come up with a way to lure out those experts. I'm going to unmask the blood demon before the masses. Previously, a sect leader gave me a month. Right now, only 3 days have passed, said Zhongli Qian. Even if you've captured these disciples, I need time to control them, have them infiltrate their own sects, and sabotage them from the inside. And he also needed to be Wenren E's relationship coach and act oblivious even though he had already seen through everything. It was truly exhausting. Yesterday, Shu Yanyan had dropped in and picked up a white hair from the floor, distastefully saying that crane-haired wanderer had such a nice ring to it, but he better not become the no-hair wanderer. After getting implanted with the heart-linking parasite along with Baili Qingmiao, he'd sold himself to Xuanyuan sect and gone too deep to pull back. He was respected in the Zhongli clan, with no one even daring to raise their voice to his face and the scholarly guests also holding him in utmost esteem. Yet in Xuanyuan sect, he had been ordered left and right by the 2 successive leaders and forced to bury his conscience in order to help clean up the righteous sects, occasionally dealing with the right protector's flirting, getting a migraine looking after the left protector and her 2 disciples, as well as being Wenren E and Yin Hanjiang's relationship counselor. The strange thing was that he had no desire to escape, just dealing with the headaches and accepting all these complicated tasks. Perhaps in comparison to the hypothetical cultivation clans who acted noble to your face and did lowly acts behind your back, he preferred these kinds of straightforward and open attitudes. I've given the people to you, Yin Hanjiang said. If the altar masters and protectors don't listen to your orders, come find this lord. This task must be completed soon. Don't keep my venerable waiting. Running a hand through his hair, Zhongli Qian agreed helplessly. Yin Hanjiang went looking for Tsong-sheen immediately after. Barging into the Hellfire Pavilion, his vicious aura scared a flock of ghost cultivators into hiding. Has Yao Jiaping been skinned? He asked impatiently. Yes, it's done. Tsong-sheen offered up a neatly folded skin with both hands, teaching the incantation to Yin Hanjiang. Yin Hanjiang accepted the skin with distaste. Picking up Tsong-sheen, he returned to the main hall and dumped him in Baili Qingmiao's bedroom. Take back her signet chi. This lord needs to bring her back to Shangqing sect, and she'll be a hassle if she's sick. Baili Qingmiao knew Yin Hanjiang wanted to use her as bait to lure out Wenzhao and said in a small voice, I heard Brother Zhonglee's explanation. It wasn't Shushong trying to kill me that day. It was the blood demon possessing his body. Can you possibly... Yin Hanjiang didn't have the same patience toward Baili Qingmiao as Wenren E. He grabbed her neck to prevent her from speaking and said threateningly, It's indisputable that Wenzhao is colluding with the blood demon. Even if he's being used, heaven will place the karma on him. If you don't want to cooperate, this lord will always break Shangqing sect's wards and slaughter the whole sect. It's your choice, the Shangqing sect or Wenzhao. He tossed Baili Qingmiao aside. Then, remembering how, in the ending of Abusive Romance, Baili Qingmiao dared to reject Wenren E, he suddenly sneered. You were willing to give up everything because Wenzhao taught you to value mortal lives. Now that those lives and Wenzhao are placed side by side, which will you choose, Baili Qingmiao? He was too blunt, directly giving her this question. Baili Qingmiao opened and closed her mouth, but was unable to answer. Does this warrant hesitation? Yin Hanjiang said, looking at her intensely. If it were me, there could be no other answer besides my venerable. Baili Qingmiao, you claim to love Wenzhao with all your heart, willing to betray my venerable's kindness for him. Now it's just the Shangqing sect against Wenzhao, but you're unable to decide? Do you actually love Wenzhao, or are you just intoxicated by the feeling of infatuation? Figure it out. His words were like a blow to the head, reaching straight to Baili Qingmiao's heart. Chapter 66. So-Called Fate. What awakened Baili Qingmiao wasn't the choice between her Wenzhao and mortal lives. She wasn't like Yin Hanjiang. Yin Hanjiang could discard all other lives, but she had never been that kind of person. The words that awakened her were, willing to give up everything. She had always used this to justify her feelings. Subconsciously, she thought that she had given up so much for her Wenzhao. She'd been so good to him. She loved him so much. So how could he treat her like this? It was unfair. But right now, she suddenly realized that it felt like she hadn't done much for her Wenzhao at all. Sect Leader Yeen, why do you think that I've given up everything for my Shushong? She asked. Yin Hanjiang answered, You retrieved the snow flame. No, that wasn't right. His Venerable had told him before that Baili Qingmiao once retrieved the snow flame for her Wenzhao, but now it had been given to Yin Hanjiang. The Shattered Mountain meteorite had also originally been obtained for her Wenzhao, but now it likewise belonged to Yin Hanjiang. The other who had gained so many things from Baili Qingmiao was his Venerable himself. Yin Hanjiang fell silent, watching Baili Qingmiao, the situation becoming awkward. Yin Hanjiang didn't care about other people's lives and deaths, but for all these years, he'd had no connections to anyone and, aside from his debt to Wenren E for saving and raising him, he owed nothing to anyone else. But now that he thought about it, he owed a lot of debt to Baili Qingmiao and Wenren E. At the very least, the snow flame had been obtained through her nearly freezing to death. Fortunately, Baili Qingmiao didn't notice Yin Hanjiang's change in attitude. She held her head, shaking it a few times. You also think I haven't done much for my Shushong? But how come I keep feeling like I love him so much that I'd give up so many things for him? When Shushong's foundation was destroyed, I did retrieve the 7-colored jade lotus heart, but in the end, I gave it to Liu Shujie. I clearly know that his nascent soul was stolen by Protector Shu, but now that I'm at Xuanyuan's sect being looked by after Sister Shu, and if we're not close, we're at least friendly with each other. After Shushong married Liu Shujie, I left the sect and traveled the world with Brother Zhongli, Master Qingxue, and Su Huai. At True Yin Mountain, I didn't obtain the Lockhart herb for Shushong, but for the sect master. Even when I finally returned to Shangqing's sect, when Shushong asked me to plot against Protector Shu, I refused. Her eyes became more wild as she continued to talk, unable to comprehend. Clawing her hair into a mess, she asked, We've walked separate paths ever since Shushong got married, and have hardly interacted even to today, so why do I feel like he betrayed me, and I can't give up my feelings toward him? If he betrayed anyone, it's Liu Shujie. Yin Hanjiang was familiar with this feeling. Right up to the present, he had felt an inexplicable urge to kill every time he saw Baili Qingmiao, feeling like she had betrayed Wenren E's love. Seeing her in such a mess, Yin Hanjiang slowly pulled her sleeve over, ripping off a piece, and used it to wipe non-existent dust from the army-crushing spike's scabbard. Every time he wanted to kill Baili Qingmiao, he used this to keep himself in check. Having gotten half her sleeve ripped off, Baili Qingmiao's thoughts were interrupted. She stared wordlessly at her tattered dress, not understanding what enjoyment Yin Hanjiang got out of using her as a rag. She coughed a few times and turned to Altar Master Shrr, who was currently looking at her greedily. She said a bit awkwardly, Altar Master Shrr, I don't know how to transfer sickness chi, so I must trouble you to do it yourself. Don't worry, I no longer wish to die. Thank you for your care. I didn't do it for you. You took it yourself. With a few guilty coughs, Altar Master Shrr walked up and placed a hand against Baili Qingmiao's back, retrieving the sickness chi he had spent so many years cultivating. After completing the transfer, he discovered that his power had increased. Sickness chi was like spiritual essence and would diminish a lot every time it was transferred. Altar Master Shrr had been prepared to become weaker, but his chi had actually strengthened. After resting for so long, Baili Qingmiao's injury had basically recovered, so she only needed to find materials to create a new bonded weapon. She had been constantly weak and passing out because of the sickness Qi, so now that it was given back, she perked up significantly, her thoughts also becoming clearer. "I'm willing to follow you to Shangqing sect and lure out my Shushong," she said to Yin Hanjiang. "Not only that, but since Protector Chu has given me the tablet holding Liu Shizhe's spirit vow, I can order her to help, but I have a condition." "Don't bother," Yin Hanjiang said, instantly letting her know there was no way he would agree. Baili Qingmiao was stubborn, however. She hadn't been willing to set a trap for Tsong-shoo-eh for Shangqing sect, and now that Yin Hanjiang wanted to harm Shangqing sect, she wasn't willing either. Even if Yin Hanjiang wouldn't agree, she said it anyway. "Your ultimate goal is the blood demon. I've already heard from Brother Zhongli that the blood demon was the one who killed 17 experts of the righteous sects, and after he regains his power, he'll be a threat to the whole cultivation world. Us righteous cultivators cannot possibly allow such a madman to threaten the cultivation world, let alone the mortal world. Setting aside my personal feelings, When-jow is probably ignorant in being used by the blood demon. He is partly at fault, so can't be considered innocent in the whole matter." Her words were logical and actually made Yin Hanjiang see her in a new light, so he held back his impatience and listened. "That's why I'm willing to go to Shangqing sect and lure out When-jow, as well as the blood demon. But afterward, When-jow must be given to Shangqing sect and the 4 other great sects to be judged publicly. We can't condemn him on our own." Yin Hanjiang even wanted to burn Baili Qingmiao, so how could he let off When-jow? But Baili Qingmiao's thoughts happened to agree with his. Yin Hanjiang wanted to clear his Venerable's name and clearly show the righteous cultivators just how blind they were, siding with evil and harming the most just man in the world. But after it was all exposed, Yin Hanjiang didn't plan to let When-jow and the other cultivators who had participated in the attack go. He smiled coldly at Baili Qingmiao, not telling her his thoughts. "Sure, he can be judged by the public." "Sex leader is generous," Baili Qingmiao said, cupping a fist. "I'll gladly accompany you." Having gotten her cooperation, Yin Hanjiang planned to set out immediately. Since Baili Qingmiao's clothes were full of holes, she asked Yin Hanjiang to wait while she changed into something other than a rag for the army-crushing spike. She had just put on the yellow uniform of the disciples of Shangqing sect when someone appeared before her. It was Wenren E. "Senior Wenren." She cupped a fist. Wenren had been caught by surprise by Baili Qingmiao's decision, and he saw it through the abusive romance book. He was already prepared to possess her if she refused, so he could personally go to Shangqing sect and bait out her Wenzhao. But it was possible he would be seen through by the blood demon, so it wasn't an ideal plan. Now that Baili Qingmiao was cooperating, Wenren E was relieved, but also confused. "This Venerable didn't expect you to willingly help Xuanyuan sect deal with Wenzhao," he said. "I thought you would never be able to free yourself from Wenzhao for your entire life." Baili Qingmiao blushed slightly. In front of her senior, who was a bit cold, but had always taken care of her, she confided her thoughts. "I'm also baffled. When I was 18, it felt like I could give my life for my Shushong. After the Great Sex War, my heart ached every time I looked at Shushong, and all I wanted to do was give my nascent soul to him. After Shushong got married, I was in such agony, and if it weren't for Brother Zhonglee's help, I would have snuck back to Shangqing sect to see him. If he wasn't happy with Liu Shizhe, I might have even betrayed my principles and offered myself to him, becoming a person I would despise." Wenren E found her analysis logical. The books by Baili Qingmiao probably would have, if it weren't for the interference of the Violet Spirit Master, already become part of Wenzhao's harem. Her relationship with Wenzhao was so hopelessly muddled, and she was being influenced by the divine nature, so it was impossible for her to escape this cursed relationship. But everything was different now. In their 30 years of traveling together, Zhongli Qian had taught Baili Qingmiao much, and Qingmiao might have helped slightly too. After thinking for a moment, Baili Qingmiao said, I've thought carefully about what I felt when Shishong was wedded. Probably since I had my heart set on him from the start, and also dedicated 20 years of my youth and feelings to him, I was unable to give it up. But now, I'm almost 70. Even mortals would understand the ways of the world at that age. I'm not as impulsive as I was in my youth and have gained some insight. With some things and some people, the more you invest and commit to them, the more you want to be repaid, and if you aren't, you become unable to let go. But if you let go early, then you'll see that those things were only obsessions. Sect Leader Yeen's words weren't completely correct, but one thing he said was, after thinking carefully about my relationship with Shishong, I suddenly felt like I don't really love him very much. I was just attached to sacrificing for someone, moved by the depths of my own love. Senior Wenren, please don't laugh at me, but I can't even remember why I wanted to die a year ago. Baili Qingmiao's expression was calm. She had truly been awakened by Yin Hanjiang's words. Wenren E smiled slightly, and thinking about the words he had just read in Abusive Romance, said with some pride, "This Venerable has gone around asking everyone he could find about your attachment to Wenzhao, from the members of Shenren's sect to Zhongli Qian and Zhongli Kuang, even digging through Yao Jiaping's memories to no avail. Who would have thought that the one whom most understood love was right by this Venerable's side? He had exhausted his efforts, even using the tracking curse and heart-linking parasites, but never managed to wake up Baili Qingmiao. Yet Yin Hanjiang had seen through everything. Yin Hanjiang asked for nothing in return for his love. He didn't need Wenren E's answer, just his survival. Even when the books Wenren E loved Baili Qingmiao, he could endure his heartbreak and protect her. And it was because of his experiences that he could see the source of Baili Qingmiao's problem at a glance. She was just attached. Baili Qingmiao. Wenren E brought out the divine blood, holding it out to Baili Qingmiao. The debt this Venerable once owed you is now fully repaid. Holding this, your mind won't be affected by the divine nature, as long as you don't get too close to it. Keep it safe. From now on, you and I have no more connection to each other." Baili Qingmiao received it, instantly feeling her body fill with power. The stone transformed into a red silk ribbon, becoming her new bondage weapon. She immediately sat down to meditate, circulating her spiritual essence to refine her new magic item. Wenren E could clearly see that she was practicing the path of indifference. Wenren E once entered the Tao due to the war the primordial goddess had started, gaining power to avenge his family. Because of his lingering attachments, he had saved Yin Hanjiang, who had grown to love him. Baili Qingmiao, in the clutches of her love, had been enlightened by a few words from Yin Hanjiang, and had truly abandoned her infatuation and entered the Tao. So-called fate had long been decided in mysterious ways. Chapter 67. New Techniques. Baili Qingmiao said she was going to change, but Yin Hanjiang ended up waiting outside her door for 3 days. After waiting for an hour, Yin Hanjiang started to lose patience, pacing back and forth outside. He wanted to throw the door open, but was concerned Baili Qingmiao wouldn't be dressed and he would see something. Yin Hanjiang originally didn't care about accidentally seeing a female body. It was just a skin to him. Forget about bodies without clothes. He had seen plenty of bodies without flesh in his life. Of the 2 Xuanyuan sect protectors, one dressed skimpily, and one found having flesh distasteful. After knowing these 2 for so long, it was hard for Yin Hanjiang to have any sense of modesty toward the opposite sex. Just when he was about to kick the door open, Yanyan, who had been lazing around wherever for the past few days, rushed up and blocked Yin Hanjiang's kick with a smile, standing in front of the door. "Don't be so impatient, sect leader," she said. "How can you barge in as you like on a girl changing?" She looked unruffled on the surface, but on the inside, she was cursing. Wenren E had just sent her a message, saying that Baili Qingmiao had entered meditation, and since Zhongli Qian was too busy and he really didn't want to bother him anyway, he needed her to come stop Yin Hanjiang from barging in. If Baili Qingmiao was disturbed, the path of indifference that she had finally enlightened to would be broken. Wenren E wanted to go outside and explain himself, but Yin Hanjiang would suffer internal injuries if he saw him. Plus, even the perpetually oblivious Wenren E had learned to be a bit more considerate after causing his lover to cough up blood and nearly die upon confessing to him, and realized that if he emerged from Baili Qingmiao's room, Yin Hanjiang might be affected by the original plot's events, and his thoughts might go to wild places. So, he had asked Xu Yanyan, who was closest to Qiu Tongshue's room, to come help him. As for why it wasn't Qiu Tongshue, who was even closer, did that warrant explanation? When Xu Yanyan visited Zhongli Qian a few days earlier and picked up a strand of his hair from the floor, she had known Wenren E was back and had left Yin Hanjiang still in charge of the sect. Wenren E's presence itself had the ability to keep Xuanyuan's sect in line, so she instantly realized she now had two bosses instead of one, feeling a hint of dismay in her heart. Most importantly, this time Wenren E specified that Xu Yanyan couldn't mention this was on his orders, so Xu Yanyan was in an even more difficult position. She was starting to understand how Zhongli Qian, as a Mahayana cultivator, could be losing hair. Brushing a hand over her head of luxuriant black hair, Xu Yanyan smiled at him, saying softly, "Sect leader Yeen, you may be strong, but your understanding of what men like and what they think about is rather lacking." She walked near, leaning toward his ear and whispering, "If you barge in and see Baili Qingmiao improperly dressed, do you think the Venerable will be happy?" Xu Yanyan thought Yin Hanjiang would realize, but he gave the door a disdainful glance and, raising his hand, said haughtily, "The Venerable doesn't like Baili Qingmiao." Xu Yanyan... ... She was realizing that she had overestimated Yin Hanjiang. Seeing him glance at her smugly and turn to kick the door again, she hurried to stop him. Through gritted teeth, she transmitted, "Of course I know who the Venerable likes, but the problem isn't you seeing Baili Qingmiao changing, it's you seeing anyone besides Wenren E changing, whether male or female." Yin Hanjiang's foot was already against the door, prepared to bring down the whole room, but when he heard Xu Yanyan's words, his face immediately turned red. Very slowly, he drew back his foot. Stiffening his face and raising his chin, he looked down on her as he transmitted, "Protector Xu, as one of this sect's pillars, what do you say I should do in this situation?" Xu Yanyan rolled her eyes inwardly, but she was outwardly respectful as she spoke. "Why don't I go in and take a look, and ask Baili Qingmiao to hurry up, That's what a subordinate should be for, right?" "Yeah." Yin Hanjiang put his hands behind his back, turning calmly so Xu Yanyan could react. Xu Yanyan entered, turning in a circle, and came back out. "Baili Qingmiao has entered a trance." "She can enter a trance by changing clothes?" Yin Hanjiang said. "How would I know? If you just barge in, she might have a chi deviation. If sect leader is impatient..." She thought back to her meeting with Wenren E in his room. Wenren E wanted her to talk Yin Hanjiang around and ask him not to be impatient, but she mustn't provoke him, in case he had another chi deviation. Xu Yanyan finally understood why someone like Zhongli Qian, who was usually as unfettered as a breeze, had been looking more haggard recently. She originally thought there wasn't anything that could stump someone so smart as Zhongli Qian, but facing this dilemma, she realized there truly was. They were pressured by two tyrants. Wenren E wanted her to talk around Yin Hanjiang, but also wanted her to be careful, use a delicate touch, not aggravate him. He was only considerate toward Yin Hanjiang. He didn't think about whether, when sect leader Yeen disciplined her, he used a delicate touch. Good thing she was Xu Yanyan, having once served the old sect master, then Wenren E, and now Yin Hanjiang. Seeing Yin Hanjiang's expression was growing darker, she smiled even more sweetly and transmitted, "If sect leader Yeen is impatient, why don't you use this time to learn some new techniques?" "This lord has already passed his tribulation, so what technique of the cultivation world could be of use to me?" Yin Hanjiang said coldly. Don't be so sure. How about... Shu Yanyan leaned closer to Yin Hanjiang and made a very recognizable shape with her mouth. Oh, God. Oh, gosh. Yin Hanjiang's skin was pale, and his emotion showed easily on his face. His blush, which had just faded, reappeared instantly. He turned with a flap of his sleeve, hiding his face, and when Shu Yanyan could see... I'm so sorry. I'll read that again. He turned with a flap of his sleeve, hiding his face, and when Shu Yanyan could next see it clearly, he was wearing a mask. This lord may already be powerful, but there's nothing wrong with learning a few more techniques, he said. Underneath the mask, his voice was steady. Baili Qingmiao needs to meditate alone for a while anyway, so this lord might as well see if he can pass the time with your techniques. Shu Yanyan... ... Keep pretending. This protector has so many techniques you won't be able to learn them in a year. I won't just teach them to you. I'll teach them to Wenren E, and after you seclude yourselves together for 30 or 50 years, Yuan sect will become mine. After cursing him out mentally, Shu Yanyan, her expression still perfectly deferent, invited Yin Hanjiang to her cultivation grounds where she instructed him in her techniques for 3 full days. Baili Qingmiao had already laid down the foundations of the path of indifference. She was just taking advantage of the divine nature every time she underwent a tribulation, having the principles she'd just enlightened to suppress. With the help of the divine blood, as well as Wenren E, Yin Hanjiang, Tsong-shoo-eh, and Zhongli Qian, she comprehended everything in a flash. She enlightened to great principles after 3 days, and signs of her enlightenment remained in her eyes after she left her trance. She had advanced directly to void boundary stage, just 1 step away from Mahayana. Look at you. It seems the tribulation to advance from body unity to void boundary had no effect on you, Wenren E said, pleased. Thanks to Senior Wenren's guidance, my heart is now as still water, Baili Qingmiao said calmly. Then this Venerable has another favor to ask, Wenren E said. While you go to Shangqing sect, this Venerable wishes to borrow your body to enter along with you. Yin Hanjiang was afflicted by inner demons. He might be powerful, but the Shangqing sect had their moon pool bell and the blood demon, so Wenren E was afraid complications might arise somewhere along the way. He wasn't at ease with Yin Hanjiang going alone, yet if they were face to face, Yin Hanjiang would be tormented by being unable to tell him apart from the illusions. With all that in mind, the best way was possessing Baili Qingmiao's body to follow Yin Hanjiang. If anything went wrong, he could help out secretly. In the past, Baili Qingmiao would have never agreed. It was hard enough for her to act against her Wenzhao, let alone allow Wenren E to use her body. Her thoughts were different now, however. Her Wenzhao was an obstacle in the way of her path of indifference. After so much trouble, she'd finally enlightened to this path, so it would be bad if she saw him again and slipped into old mistakes. With this plan, Senior Wenren could be reassured, and she could help her heart from being shaken. So it was the perfect method. There's naturally no issue. In fact, I should thank my senior. Wenren's possession technique no longer worked the same way as a blood cultivator's. He had already taken advantage of the blood demon's attack to escape the body of a blood cultivator, and now his soul was composed of chaos energy. The primordial chaos was the only force in the universe before the separation of heaven and earth, so all material things originated from it. He could meld with anything without a trace, undetectable to a degree the blood demon wasn't capable of. Thus, the one who walked out of the room wasn't Baili Qingmiao, but Wenren E wearing her body. He knew Yin Hanjiang still bore a grudge about the events of the original plot, so decided not to tell him that he was possessing Baili Qingmiao. They would just take a trip to Shangqing sect and come back, so he didn't need to reveal himself. Yin Hanjiang had already returned after completing Shu Yanyan's tutelage. With great effort, he suppressed the blush on his face with his spiritual energy and took off his mask, saying coldly to Baili Qingmiao, "You sure have wasted this lord's time and made him wait for you. Hurry up and get going. The faster we get there, the faster we're back." He put on Yao Jiaping's skin and flew off without another word to Baili Qingmiao. Wenren E wasn't good at impersonating other people in the first place, so seeing that Yin Hanjiang didn't need an answer, followed in silence. Yin Hanjiang could bring Baili Qingmiao along as he flew, but after learning Shu Yanyan's techniques, he had some aversion to touching others' skin. For example, when Yin Hanjiang used to kill people, he had no problem with grabbing their necks or ripping out their hearts with his bare hands. But after knowing about some of these techniques, when Yin Hanjiang attacked people in the future, he might wrap ropes around their necks or stab them in the heart with the weapon, preferring to have a barrier. If you wanted to take someone along in a light flash, you would wrap them into your body, or in sword flight. Baili Qingmiao would have to sit on the army-crushing sword, and Yin Hanjiang didn't want either. He could only go on ahead and wait for Baili Qingmiao to slowly catch up. Wenren E's light flash was quick, but if he was pretending to be Baili Qingmiao, he couldn't go at these kinds of speeds. At Void Boundary, it would take her half a day to get from Xuanyuan sect to Shangqing sect, and he couldn't bring out the iridescent blood flame silk that she had refined from the divine blood either, because the divine blood would cause Wenren E to gain a material form and be unable to possess her. He could only fly slowly, curbing his speed. Seeing Yin Hanjiang disappear in the distance, he thought this wasn't the way he had wanted to accompany him. After flying for about 2 hours, he saw Yin Hanjiang, in the shape of Yao Jiaping, come flying back. Furiously, he said, "You're too slow. This lord has waited at the tea-house for an hour." Wenren E was trying to think of an explanation when he saw Yin Hanjiang remove from his silver storage belt a heavenly silk rope. It could change length at will and was used for capturing people in Xuanyuan sect. Yin Hanjiang had previously dragged back the dozen or so scum of the righteous sects, all wrapped up in this rope. "Hold!" Baili Qingmiao had just opened her mouth when Yin Hanjiang wrapped her into a bundle so that no skin showed. He lifted her over his shoulders, heading back to Shangqing sect. After they arrived, Yin Hanjiang retrieved the rope with a cold huff and dropped Baili Qingmiao. Wenren E turned cleanly in midair and managed not to faceplant. After landing solidly on both feet, he said to Yin Hanjiang, "You could have just taken me on your sword. What was the need for that?" "This lord shouldn't have close contact with you." Yin Hanjiang gave Baili Qingmiao a cold look. "Don't expect this lord to embrace you the whole way." "You..." Wenren E wanted to speak, but remembered how in the original story, he was always described as carrying Baili Qingmiao in his embrace the whole way as he flew. This was a direct quote. Yin Hanjiang seemed to still have problems with the original story. Wenren E thought Yin Hanjiang didn't like how he loved Baili Qingmiao in the original book, so treated her poorly. But he didn't know that Yin Hanjiang was furious about something different. His Venerable had treated Baili Qingmiao so well, yet all she thought about was Wenzhao. She was worthless. This person his heart was devoted to had been discarded like an old shoe, so how could he not be furious? So now, even though those events had never happened and could never possibly happen, Yin Hanjiang still felt an indescribable distaste toward Baili Qingmiao. With a cold huff, he used a cleaning spell on his hands, then grabbed Baili Qingmiao's sleeve to wipe them. Wenren E... ... After they reached Shangqing sect, Yin Hanjiang restrained himself a bit. After all, he was supposed to be Yao Jiaping. Before Yao Jiaping departed, Wenzhao had given him a messaging talisman. After he rescued Baili Qingmiao and returned to Shangqing sect, all Yao Jiaping needed to do was snap it, and Wenzhao would open the wards and welcome them in. Yin Hanjiang snapped the talisman. Wenzhao, upon seeing it really was Yao Jiaping and Baili Qingmiao outside the wards, opened it enthusiastically and invited them in. After thanking Yao Jiaping, he threw his arms around Baili Qingmiao, saying, "Shrr, I didn't want to hurt you." Before he could finish, Yao Jiaping kicked him off. After kicking him, Yin Hanjiang shot a look at Baili Qingmiao, thinking, after you rejected my Venerable, you let this thing hug you? Wenren E. ... This is so funny. I am loving this new Yin Hanjiang. Chapter 68. Treasure Trove. Yin Hanjiang had kicked him hard. He restrained his power a bit, as Yao Jiaping was a wandering immortal, so he had to act the part. He didn't really put his heart into the act, though. Wenzhao was only at void boundary, though, and with his guard completely down, there was no way he could withstand an attack with the full force of a wandering immortal. If the blood demon hadn't used spiritual energy to protect him, Yin Hanjiang's kick might have destroyed his organs. The blood demon did treasure Wenzhao as a host with the potential to ascend, so that he could absorb more powerful people in the immortal realm. "What are you doing?" Wenzhao said, climbing back to his feet. He was close friends with Yao Jiaping. Yao Jiaping had previously saved the sect master, and later, touched by Wenzhao's feelings toward Baili Qingmiao, agreed to infiltrate Xuanyuan's sect to rescue her. Yao Jiaping's eccentricities were well known across the cultivation world, but he had already been loyal to Wenzhao. Wenzhao had never been treated like this before and was furious. It was too much to ask for Yin Hanjiang to act like Yao Jiaping. Impersonation wasn't just in his nature. Fortunately, after reading God of Annihilation Volume 2, he had learned Yao Jiaping's catchphrase and manner of speaking, so he recited a line from the book. "Oh, I just can't stand seeing you two act so lovey-dovey with each other." Yao Jiaping was this kind of twisted person in the book. Every time a pair of lovers begged for his help, he would give them a particularly bad time. He would give them two choices, either for the woman to give her body to him, or for them to give up what was most important. Back when Baili Qingmiao brought Su Huai to him, he wanted her to give over her nascent soul or her body. When Wenzhao was traveling, he had also brought the Gongxi mistress to him. He told him clearly that he and the Gongxi mistress were only acquaintances, and also couldn't let him take a maiden's innocence, so agreed to become a test subject for Yao Jiaping. After saving the Gongxi mistress, Yao Jiaping tormented Wenzhao for a good month. Wenzhao gritted his teeth and bore it the whole time, even getting lucky and achieving a breakthrough, increasing his cultivation because of the medicines Yao Jiaping tested on him. Yao Jiaping's interest in Wenzhao was piqued, and he was also touched by his chivalry, so they became good friends. Wenzhao got to know Yao Jiaping during Baili Qingmiao's 30-year absence, and they'd been friends for 20 years by now. He never would have imagined that Yao Jiaping would one day say the same words to him as he did to cultivators he didn't like. Remembering Yao Jiaping's habits, he immediately turned to Baili Qingmiao and said, "Shimei, he didn't do anything to you, did he?" Thinking about the fees that Yao Jiaping took for his treatment, he saw how healthy Baili Qingmiao looked. She'd been injured so badly at the blood hell, yet now she'd recovered perfectly. A very unpleasant notion came to Wenzhao's mind. His face turning pale, he stumbled a few steps back, shaking his head. "No, this can't be." Yin Hanjiang didn't care about where Wenzhao's thoughts went. He came here for one purpose, capturing Wenzhao. Right now, they were right next to the Sector A, and Wenzhao was alone, so as long as they subdued the blood demon, they could carry him right off. Sector A's were difficult to enter, but easy to leave, so no one would be able to stop him and Baili Qingmiao. Yin Hanjiang had no interest in entangling himself within Baili Qingmiao's and Wenzhao's relationship. He wanted to grab Wenzhao and leave as soon as possible, so he could be back sooner for his next soul communion. The army-crushing spike's power might not be enough to instantly subdue the blood demon, so he would need to bring out the burning sky drum. The illusions Yin Hanjiang was seeing were caused not only by his inner demons, but also the burning sky drum. The inner demons were only capable of disrupting Yin Hanjiang's rationality. It was the burning sky drum which made them manifest as phantoms. Using a top-grade immortal artifact without sufficient power, it was natural that one would suffer backlash. Yin Hanjiang assessed the backlash the burning sky drum would cause and decided he could handle it, so opened his hand secretly, forming the seals to control the drum inside his sleeves. At that moment, the Shang-Qing sect master arrived and, upon seeing Yao Jiaping, greeted him enthusiastically. When I saw Wenzhao open the sector ray, I guessed it was for Sir Yao's return. Sir Yao's timing is flawless. Please come this way. Upon seeing the sect master, the skin over Yin Hanjiang's face twitched. His two enemies were both before him. He was wildly delighted, nearly unable to keep the skin he wore in place. Wenren quickly grabbed Yin Hanjiang's hand, afraid he would act without thinking. Back when he infiltrated Shang-Qing sect last time, using Liu Xinye's body, he could endure it and hold back his disgust to meet Wenzhao. If Wenzhao was alone here, he and Yin Hanjiang could just work together to capture him and quickly leave. But now, the sect master had arrived, and they were in enemy territory and didn't know how many cards the Shang-Qing sect had up their sleeves. So, they couldn't act recklessly this time. Seeing Baili Qingmiao voluntarily reach for Yao Jiaping's hand, Wenzhao was so mad he nearly bled from the eyes. Yet Yao Jiaping threw her hand off, glancing at her haughtily and reciting another line from God of Annihilation 2. You think you could possibly be equal to my Xiao Yi? At the same time, he transmitted, I know what you want. This lord has other uses for the Shang-Qing sect master, so this isn't a suitable time to wipe out both at once. He took a deep breath and, managing to calm down, stiffened his expression and looked at the sect master. Seeing as you're so anxious, I assume you have a patient for me? Yes, precisely. The sect master paid no mind to the strained atmosphere between Baili Qingmiao, Yao Jiaping, and Wenzhao. He felt ashamed for his actions toward Baili Qingmiao and didn't want to involve himself in his junior's relationships, so he could only play blind. He said to Yao Jiaping, Shang-Qing sect already owes immeasurable debt to Sir Yao for rescuing one of his disciples from Xuanyuan sect, so we're really not in a position to ask more favors, but Qingyue's life is in danger right now. No one but Sir Yao could save him. No matter whether or not you succeed, as long as you're willing to help him, Shang-Qing sect will go through heaven and hell to carry out any requests of Sir Yao's in the future, as long as it doesn't betray our principles. Yin Hanjiang raised an eyebrow slightly. Forget the future. He would have a request for Shang-Qing sect very soon, and they would neither have to betray their principles nor go through heaven and hell. It was a very minor request. In that case, there was no reason he couldn't fool around for a while. Yin Hanjiang nodded. Sure, take me there. He sat obediently on a flying boat with the sect master, Baili Qingmiao, following close behind. Seeing his Shirmei follow Yao Jiaping everywhere without even sparing him a glance, Wenzhao was so mad he nearly gave himself internal injuries. The sect master gave Wenzhao a look of warning. Hurry up. His disciple was good in every way, just he was too free with women. He was perfectly aware of how, though Wenzhao was married to Liu Xinye, he acted heartfelt with the Gongxi mistress, was close with several of his Shirmei, and still had his heart set on Baili Qingmiao. If he hadn't kept all those women happy and prevented any trouble from starting, as well as being strong enough to be Shang-Qing sect's future pillar, the sect master would have long since reprimanded him. Right now, he could only look the other way. The Shang-Qing sect owed a debt to Yao Jiaping, who had once treated the sect master and now was being asked to treat elder Qingyue. So, how could Wenzhao antagonize him over a woman? With his master's admonishment, Wenzhao held back his dissatisfaction, clenching his fists and swearing he wouldn't forget how Yao Jiaping stole his girl. After this treatment was done, he was going to confront him. Promising to rescue his beloved, and then ending up with her, how was that good brotherly behavior? He and his Shirmei were childhood sweethearts, having grown up together. So how could Yao Jiaping get between them? Yin Hanjiang obviously didn't know medicine. He planned to just play along, though he did know what kind of injury this Qingyue had sustained. Coming to a side room, he glanced at elder Qingyue, with white hair and a face covered with wrinkles and age spots, and pretended to take his pulse as the sect master explained everything to him. A year and a half ago, during the battle at the Blood Hell, the new sect leader of Xuanyuan sect threw away his life and faced a heavenly tribulation to use an immortal artifact, chasing Wenzhao and I back to the sect. We made it behind the wards in time, but the man tried to use the burning sky drum to break the array. In order to protect Shangqing sect, Qingyue Shidi used our defensive immortal artifact, the Moon Pool Bell, having his spiritual essence drained and suffering backlash. Now he's suffering the 5 declines, and though we've used elixirs and medicine to prolong his life, it's no longer enough, and his life is about to burn out. So it was him who had gotten in Yin Hanjiang's way that day? Yin Hanjiang looked down at Qingyue's face, thinking karma worked in mysterious ways. About to burn out? Don't worry, he would make him burn very brightly indeed, once he turned him into lamp oil. This trip to Shangqing sect felt like entering a treasure trove. Everyone he ran into was someone he bore a grudge against. It was simply too lucky. The skin on Yao Jiaping's face twisted again. It looked as if the muscles underneath were smiling while the skin didn't move, creating a chilling effect. Seeing his expression, the sect master became anxious. It can't be that not even Sir Yao can treat this. Oh, Shidi, your Shuxiong has harmed you. In order to display the dignity of a sect master, he purposefully appeared like a middle-aged man, with black hair and a long beard like a poor official, a popular look in the mortal world. Tears fell from his eyes, and he kneeled at Qingyue's side, silently sobbing. Baili Qingmiao took a glance at Qingyue and transmitted to Yin Hanjiang. There's a way. Since Wenren E was using Baili Qingmiao's body to send the transmission, the voice was still Baili Qingmiao's. He had previously taken in Yao Jiaping's memories, so he knew there was a cure. A Mahayana cultivator must be willing to transfer over all of their spiritual essence, after which elixirs are administered, capable of returning the patient to body unity. However, they will always remain at body unity and never be able to advance. There's also a second method, finding the 5 aggregates herb. The 5 declines affect all beings, from ascended gods to the smallest insects, and all things are destined to undergo this trial aside from the primordial gods, born with the cosmos. Cultivation is only able to delay this fate. Only the 5 aggregates herb, nurtured by the heavens and earth, can treat the 5 declines. But that's a treasure in the divine realm, and many ascended gods want to get their hands on it. Yin Hanjiang gave Baili Qingmiao a look. What use was there in mentioning something they couldn't get? I have it, Baili Qingmiao transmitted. In the original plot, Baili Qingmiao stumbled upon a small primordial realm and obtained it, naturally giving it to Wenzhao. The 5 aggregates herb was drawn to her primordial divinity, so this time, even though Wenzhao didn't need it, she still found it in her 30 years of travel. She, Zhongli Qian, Tsong-shoo-eh, and Su-huai were all unable to identify it, only knowing it was something belonging to the divine realm, so they had kept it hidden all this time. Don't ruin my plans, Yin Hanjiang transmitted. He turned to look at Shangqing sect's only Mahayana cultivator, the sect master, and smiled pleasantly. There's a way. He never mentioned the 5 aggregates herb, only saying the first method. He then said, I can teach you the transfer method and refine the supplemental elixirs for you. Whether or not you want to trade a Mahayana cultivator for a body unity one who will never advance and still experience the 5 declines after 500 years, that's up to you. The Shangqing sect master was shaken. Isn't there any other way? Even ascended gods can't avoid the 5 declines, so what can I, as a wandering immortal, do? Yin Hanjiang sat casually in a chair and gave the sect master an uncaring look. It's your decision whether or not you want to save him. As for my fee, no need to wait for the future. Yin Hanjiang glanced at Wenzhao and smiled gleefully. After putting on a glove, he grabbed the back of Baili Qingmiao's neck and addressed Wenzhao. "What about giving her to me?" He's so funny. Oh my gosh. Chapter 69. Beset by Rumors. A lofty position as an elite healer, contempt for others, so-called dedication to his Xiao Yi, and disdain for other women made up the character of Yao Jiaping. Yin Hanjiang wasn't a particularly good actor, but along with Wenren E transmitting treatments to him, he could play the part well enough. Seeing how Baili Qingmiao still acted so docile even though Yao Jiaping was grabbing her, Wenzhao was trembling in rage. Pointing a finger at Yao Jiaping, he said, "I can't believe that after I treated you as a good friend and sworn brother, you would do this to me. Plus, your heart is stuck on your Xiao Yi, so what do you want my Shrr for?" "Oh," Yin Hanjiang said slowly. Enjoying Wenzhao's expression, he grabbed Baili Qingmiao's dress and used it to wipe the hand he had just touched Elder Qingmiao with. "This woman might be suited for being a rag." "Shrr, are you happy being treated like this?" Wenzhao shouted at Baili Qingmiao. If it was Shu Yanyan playing the part, at this point she would probably be crying, unable to speak, putting on a no-holds-barred performance of a pure-hearted girl forced to dishonor herself for the sake of her sect. Too bad it was Wenren E here, though. Watching Yin Hanjiang play the part of Yao Jiaping, he was seeing another side of the man. He was no longer grieving, but still as unrestrained. So this was Yin Hanjiang's true nature. He truly wasn't suited to be a sword cultivator. A sword cultivator needed to be bold in the beginning and reserved later on, until they reached the point of being a sword in of themselves, so that a blade was hidden in their every move and glance. Yin Hanjiang was only bold, so he had advanced quickly through the early stages, but become stuck at void boundary. Yet when he gave up the sword, he instantly broke through to the peak of Mahayana. Wenren E simultaneously thought that he had gotten in the way of Yin Hanjiang's growth, and felt that it was quite a refreshing sight. Seeing how Yin Hanjiang put on a glove to grab Baili Qingmiao's neck, he seemed so polite and cute. So how could Wenren E put up an act of being coerced? Wenren E could only raise a sleeve to block the smile that he couldn't hold back, turning his head aside and acting too ashamed to let Wenzhao see his face, even though he was grinning inside. He barely managed to stay in character. Wenzhao believed that Baili Qingmiao had been broken after being abused, thinking that she was unworthy of him and unable to look directly at him. "Yao Jiaping, this marks the end of our—" Before Wenzhao could finish, the sect master moved before him with the flap of his sleeves and bowed to Yao Jiaping. "My Shrr sustained this injury while saving Wenzhao and me, so I must repay him. Even if I can only give him 500 years of life, he might yet find opportunities to advance. As the only Mahayana cultivator of Shangqing sect, naturally it falls on me to save my Shrr." The sect master looked at Baili Qingmiao, and after a moment of thought, said, "As for Sir Yao's fee, in my humble opinion, Baili Qingmiao is unacceptable. She is a disciple of Shangqing sect, and even if she has gone down the wrong path before, Shangqing sect cannot give her away like an object. I've watched Baili Qingmiao grow up. She's a kind and pure-hearted girl, and even if she's a bit gullible, she would never do anything immoral. If Sir Yao needs a test subject or a rag, this lowly Taoist would do his best, but Baili Qingmiao cannot be given to you." Hearing his words, Yin Hanjiang and Wenren E sobered up again. Yin Hanjiang was naturally dark and a bit vicious, but he had been influenced by Wenren E since his youth, and approved of people who could give their own lives to protect others. Of course, if he didn't know Wenren E was still alive, he wouldn't have shown any mercy, no matter how much he approved of someone. Knowing of Wenren E's survival had mellowed out Yin Hanjiang a lot. He stood up. "What use is a Foundation establishment test subject? And why would I need Baili Qingmiao? It's not like I don't have rags. It was just a joke. As for my fee, we can talk after the treatment." Yin Hanjiang wrote down the transfer method and the medicinal prescription. The medicinal ingredients were common, so Shangqing sect stocks had plenty of them. They could start refining the elixirs any time, but it would take 3 to 5 days to finish, during which Yao Jiaping needed to look after it. Yin Hanjiang naturally knew nothing about refining elixirs. Baili Qingmiao had written the prescription, so he made Baili Qingmiao his assistant, helping him fan fires. The sect master, after receiving the technique and prescription, treated them like treasures. He sat at Qingyue's bedside, saying with joyful tears, "Shudi, there's hope for you." "Shisheng." Elder Qingyue reached out a hand, powerlessly grabbing the prescription and trying to tear it. "You can't do this. You have hope for ascending. You mustn't waste your gifts on me. Plus, the sect still needs you." The sect master said resolutely, "Shudi, some exchanges can't be weighed in terms of value. It's my wish to save you. Even if I'll fall to the foundation establishment stage and my future cultivation will be arduous, it won't be impossible. As for the sect, Wenzhao has already grown up, and I can rest easy leaving it to him." Yow Jeeah-ping watched uncaringly at one side. The flesh underneath his skin twitched once, his expression dark. Qingyue needed to take some medicine before he could withstand the transfer technique, so Yao Jiaping would be spending the next few days making elixirs. He forbade other people from entering and set up an array outside the room, shutting himself in with Baili Qingmiao. Many rumors about Baili Qingmiao had already spread through the sect. After returning to his room, Wenzhao had cussed out Yao Jiaping, which was overheard by Liu Xinye. She proceeded to spread the news around about Baili Qingmiao and Yao Jiaping within the sect, saying she had not only taken the Xuanyuan sect protector Chu Tsong-shoo-eh as master, but had also learned the art of plucking and replenishing from right protector Shu Yanyan and dual cultivated with Yao Jiaping to gain power. Afterwards, Yao Jiaping had treated her as a rag and thrown her away. There were other rumors that Baili Qingmiao had raised her cultivation so fast because, in her 30 years of travel, she had dual cultivated with Zhongli Qian many times, and she didn't even pass up her young disciple Su Huai. Other people said that Baili Qingmiao was perfectly healthy despite her bonded weapon having been broken because she had received favor from the 2 successive Xuanyuan sect leaders during her stay. In just 2 days, Baili Qingmiao was regarded within the sect as a woman who would sleep with anyone. The targets of the rumors, besides Yao Jiaping, just happened to be Wenren E, Zhongli Qian, Yin Hanjiang, and Su Huai, the 4 love interests of abusive romance. In the original story, Liu Xinye also started these kinds of rumors in order to destroy Wenzhao and Baili Qingmiao's relationship. Wenzhao misunderstood her for a long time and ignored her every time she tried to explain, treating her awfully for a while. As the rumors spread, Yin Hanjiang and Baili Qingmiao were focused on refining elixirs. It was mainly Baili Qingmiao doing all the work. Yin Hanjiang sat on a chair in the medicinal hall, holding God of Annihilation Volume 2 and thinking. He was trying to think of a method to make the victim of the transfer Wenzhao. The transfer required a Mahayana cultivator, so Wenzhao wasn't strong enough. But Yin Hanjiang saw he showed signs of a breakthrough. When he was confronting Yao Jiaping, he was so furious he nearly advanced on the spot. In God of Annihilation 2, every time Baili Qingmiao was kidnapped, Wenzhao would have a breakthrough before or during combat, filled with righteous anger about his woman. He would score an underdog victory. Right now, if he tried to take on the wandering immortal Yao Jiaping at Void Boundary, the difference was too much even for an underdog. If he rose to Mahayana, he would have some hope. And at Mahayana, he could participate in the transfer. If Wenzhao fell to foundational establishment, the Shangqing sect master had to watch helplessly as the sect's future pillar was ruined, and Elder Qingyue lived the rest of his life in regret. Then, that sounded more fun than killing the lot. The Shangqing sect master and Elder Qingyue were both stuffy righteous cultivators, so even if they were killed by demonic cultivators, they would die happily, having given their lives for the righteous path. So, there was no entertainment in killing them. It would be better to see them suffer. Yin Hanjiang rearranged the skin over his face. so that Yao Jiaping's skin smiled together with him. Wenren E, watching from the side, ... The hardest parts of refining elixirs were lighting the fires and retrieving the elixirs, while the process itself was simple, only needing the fire to be maintained. Wenren E had only been busy initially lighting the fire, while spending the rest of the 2 days idle. Yin Hanjiang had nothing to say to Baili Qingmiao while they were together. One stayed inside and one outside, having nothing to do with each other. When Yin Hanjiang wasn't paying attention, Wenren E would use the elixir furnace to block Yin Hanjiang's sight as he read his 2 books. When he read, he blocked Baili Qingmiao's consciousness so that she wouldn't be able to see the book's contents, in order to prevent the readers from knowing that one of the characters they were reading was aware they were in the book. The comments of God of Annihilation were united in flaming the author. No one could have imagined that Baili Qingmiao, who'd always been considered part of Wenzhao's harem, would have been stolen by his sworn brother. A lot of readers quit, disgusted by this NTR storyline, while many stayed, saying since they didn't have to pay for the revision, they might as well read until the end and see what else this story could abuse the main character with. The abusive romance readers were seeing through Baili Qingmiao's point of view and knew that Yao Jiaping was Yin Hanjiang in disguise, and Wenren E was controlling Baili Qingmiao's body. The protagonist herself knew everything that happened, but couldn't interfere. Everything happening at Shangqing sect was shown to the readers, and the comment section was on fire. Now that Baili Qingmiao switched to the path of indifference, the author has changed the story's category to no romance. After following this romance story for so long, it's become a story about a female protagonist defying the heavens. I should complain, but how come it feels so refreshing? It really is refreshing. The protagonist hasn't been mistreated once in the revision. Every time the female villains or the male lead wants to bully her, she's been rescued by her violent sisters or handsome brothers. Violent sisters. What a good term. It fits a certain person perfectly. You can say her name aloud. Elder Qingxue, my favorite protector Tsong-shoo-eh. An independent, unique woman who views physical beauty like dirt and wants nothing other than to become a skeleton. From the moment the protagonist saved Tsong-shoo-eh in the war instead of the demon lord, the story's been completely different. Right? When Wenzhao was injured, Tsong-shoo-eh stopped the protagonist from sacrificing herself for him. When Wenzhao slept with Liu Xinye, Elder Qingxue planned their wedding. When Wenzhao got married, Tsong-shoo-eh brought the protagonist to Xuanyuan sect and tied her to Zhongli Qian. Then the 4 of them rampaged across the world for 30 years. How is this an abusive romance? It's been a comedy throughout. Tsong-shoo-eh did the most work, but coming in second has to be my demon lord. What kind of brain does he have that he can think of using a tracking curse and some heart-linking goo for matchmaking? The demon lord doesn't understand love. Third place is our Qian. I'm begging you, author, show him some mercy. In Xuanyuan sect, Shu Yanyan's indulging in men all day. Tsong-shoo-eh's been bullying people and getting bullied. Ultramaster Miao is apparently developing a new bug. Ultramaster Zhen must be hibernating like a tortoise with how little he appears. And Ultramaster Shrr spends all day being a bootlicker. Our Qian is the only one who does any work around here. With so many people in Xuanyuan sect, don't you feel guilty assigning everything to the newest Ultramaster? Qian is about to lose his hair. Think of his hair. Fourth place is Yin Hanjiang. He really managed to change his opinion. Not only has he not turned the protagonist into a lamp, but he shook her awake and helped her enter the path of indifference. In the original version, Yin Hanjiang made you feel like you were reading a horror story, but now he seems a bit Mo, doesn't he? It was awesome when he kicked her Wenzhao. And when he grabbed BLQM's nape and said, I want her. That was so cool. I think I've fallen for the overbearing Yan deer type. I've always thought the best way to deal with a scumbag male was to have all the things he did to the female lead repaid to him. But that would be too pitiful for our little girl. But now, Yin Hanjiang's giving me the satisfaction. Sisa, do you know how it feels now to watch the person you love be with someone else? Keep talking about forgiveness and generosity. It's all a fantasy. There's no room for a third in a relationship. Well said. One question though. Who's her Shisa? From, if you learn the Tao in the morning, you can die happily in the evening. Scumbag, huh. Really quick footnote. This is the proverb that Wenzhao comes from. It goes, 朝闻道, 夕色可以. So, Wenzhao is learn morning, and the reader changes to die evening. The author mentioned this in an author's note very early on, as well as clarifying the pronunciation was Zhao, not Chao. Returning to the reading. If the protagonist wasn't cultivating the no romance path, I'd almost support her and Yin Hanjiang together. Facepalm. Stop your dangerous thoughts. Remember, it's When-rehn in Baili Qingmiao's body now. Yin Hanjiang belongs to When-rehn When-rehn ran a finger across those words. Yin Hanjiang belongs to When-rehn and smiled slightly. Abusive romance was written from the protagonist's point of view, but occasionally, when female villains tried to harm her, it would give a bit of an omniscient perspective, letting the reader see what awful things the villains were doing so they could worry. Upon discovering what Liu Xinye had done, When-rehn was considering how he should strike back, when he heard Yin Hanjiang in the room. Hey, Baili Qingmiao, come here. When-rehn quickly put away the books and went over, finding him smiling gleefully. He reached out a hand. Hand me Liu Xinye's spirit vow. This sword has a plan. Whew. Well, we made it through a lot today. I actually wasn't planning on going this long, but then I thought about it and decided to go ahead and do so because this week I will more than likely be traveling to St. Louis because my grandfather is on his deathbed and probably barely has 2 weeks, maybe. I don't know. So I'm just trying to read as much as I can now while I figure out what's happening with that and decide when I leave. That way you'll all have your content while I'm gone. So that's why this video is so long. Anyway, let's go ahead and go over my notes, starting all the way at chapter 62. I read so many chapters today. So the first thing that I wanted to say was, don't worry, Wenrehn I don't get Wenzhao either. You know, when he was just like, I just don't understand how this man could claim he loves Baili Qingmiao and yet treat her the way he does. You're absolutely right. I don't get it. I really, truly don't get it. Other than the fact that he's just really possessive over her, but he doesn't really, truly care for her. Not for real. He absolutely cannot. So, sorry, moving. The next thing I want to say is my heart melted when Wenrehn said, will you permit me to love you? To Yin Hanjiang. I was just like, oh my God, sir. Yes, I'm permitting you on Yin Hanjiang's behalf. You can love him. Yes. And the last thing for chapter 62 is, first off, I was like, whoa, Yin Hanjiang, I get that you're in a world of chaos in your mind and spirit, but you can't just be having a chi deviation or losing it like this and stuff and, you know, possibly being near death or whatever it was. You just can't. Okay? He's real. He's the real deal. It's Wenrehn okay? So those were just my thoughts while reading chapter 62. Moving on to chapter 63, I thought it was of great significance that Wenrehn went to go tell Baili Qingmiao that he loves Yin Hanjiang. And then later on we see, of course, when Yin Hanjiang is reading it, he sees it there, which was very important for him. So it was nice to see that happen and, of course, see how it actually just played into helping Yin Hanjiang. And then I also, one thing that I loved about this story, which is actually something that I really loved about Disabled Tyrant's beloved pet fish as well, is that it didn't take long for Wenrehn to come to terms with his feelings. And when he did, he didn't fight it. He accepted it. He confessed. And then when he realized maybe he moved a little too fast and he was like, well, okay, hold on, let me fix this. But You know, in a lot of Danmei, we have just this long tug of war of the feelings. And don't get me wrong, we had Yin Hanjiang who was just willing to stay in his secret feelings forever. But after it became apparent to Wenren like, it didn't take that long. You know, he was like, no, think about it. Everything that's happened, no, I love Yin Hanjiang. I want to be with Yin Hanjiang. I want to be his cultivation partner. And in so many other Danmei, we just have like this tug of war of at least one person not wanting to give in to their feelings. And so whenever we come across some where the one character is like, yeah, I'm all in, I'm all happy. So moving to chapter 64, it was so funny. When Tsong-sheen was just going through his thought process when he realized that Wenren was still alive, and he's like, I'll have no future with Wenren. And I was like, sir, you keep talking, you won't have a future with Yin Hanjiang either. Oh my gosh. But on a serious note, I think even if Wenren decides to take over Xuanyan's sect again, Tsong-sheen could have a place because he has Yin Hanjiang as his right hand now. And so if Yin Hanjiang suggests something and it involves Tsong-sheen, you might have a spot secure by, you know, buttering up to or sticking beside Yin Hanjiang. So anyway, I just thought that was funny because his life was in danger for a second there. Next, going to chapter 65. It was just very nice to see Wenren once again mention, hey, I don't like to see you kneel. And then he didn't say this part, but, you know, removing the mask or whatever, it was like, he also doesn't like to see you wear the mask when it's not necessary. Remember Yin Hanjiang? So, like, why are you kneeling to him? And why are you wearing this mask in front of him? Although it ended up needing to be put back on because the guy was going to go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs if he didn't. But still. So then the other thing is, in that chapter, Zhongli Qian feeling like he's being run ragged by Wenren and Yin Hanjiang, and just dealing with everybody, Qingmiao, Su Huai, but he's finding himself liking it there and not really caring to leave. And I was like, oh yay, you're finding a sense of belonging there, even if in the end you still end up deciding to travel. At least you know you have a place where you're welcome. So we'll just see how that goes. Next to chapter 66. I was so amazed when Baili Qingmiao said she was willing to lure out Wenzhao. But after listening to her give her whole spiel on why, I was like, okay, you go girl, you go girl. But I'm also proud of her because she understands that after going to the path of indifference, which I know I'm kind of skipping ahead a little, that she's still fragile. And so also readily agrees for Wenren to take over her body so she doesn't even have to be tempted. You know, she could have been like, absolutely not. Like, I want to see him and know for sure that I'm good, or I just want to see him myself, and no telling what would have happened. So she's clearly grown in her maturity, which, I mean, thank God, because she says she's 70 years old. I mean, I know that means absolutely nothing in the cultivation world, but at the same time, like, it means something. You old enough. So the other thing is, she was like, I'm sure Wenzhao is ignorant and unaware. And I'm like, baby girl, Bao Bei. He is far from ignorant. Now, what I will say, he may be ignorant to some of the things that are done when he allows the blood demon to take over his body, but he is not ignorant to a blood demon and their nature and what they do and what they are capable of doing. And so when he gives his body over to the blood demon, he is assenting to that. He is consenting to the bad things that happen. So he ain't ignorant, but also ignorance does not mean innocence, which is why I'm still glad she understands that he does still need to be judged for what he has done and what he has allowed. Now, moving to chapter 67. Xu Yanyan was thinking a lot about Zhongli Qian. When she was mentioned, just everything was like, oh, now I understand why Zhongli Qian this. I understand why Zhongli Qian that. And it's like, oh, I think I mentioned it before, but I was like, girl has a crush on him so hard. And, you know, she ain't got him. So I think it just makes it more funny. And I'm kind of interested to see if the author will have that go anywhere. We'll see. So if not, I'll just have it happen in my fantasy where
she finally, quote unquote, snags him and decides to not be, throwing it out there anymore. But that could just be in my imagination. Other thing is when she mentioned the new technique to Yin Hanjiang. Oh God, I was just like, oh, what new technique with his mouth did you? What did you do with your mouth? It was just so funny. I had a lot of thoughts going. So, anyway, moving on to chapter 68. It's just interesting that the sect master knows how horribly that Wenzhao treats other women, and he's just going to look the other way and dismiss his disgusting behavior because he's the future of the sect. It's like, sir, why don't you try working with another disciple and raising them up or something so that you don't have to rely on one person? Because the one person you're relying on, actually, I ain't even gonna lie, you just can't do stuff like that, because relying on a person who mistreats women like that so much could still actually be the downfall of your sect. Like, what if one day he mistreated the wrong woman and your sect came to ruin? Or what if one day he had constantly, over years, been playing with the heart of one female lead, and she was being saved by someone else from a demonic sect, and then because of misunderstandings and a whole bunch of other hoopla, someone from the demonic sect ended up wanting to kill him? What if that happens? Oh wait, that's an actual thing. So it's just like, you're trusting in this man, but this disciple of yours is going to be what brings your sect to ruin, honestly. And then the other thing that I wanted to say specifically to Wenzhao, if you can hear me, Baili Qingmiao is not your girl, okay? Yao Jiaping, but really Yin Hanjiang, did not steal your girl. Baili Qingmiao is not yours and has not been yours and will never be yours at this point, because you are the one who refused to commit to her when that's clearly what she wanted. So, like, she's not your property. Why are you treating her like this? And even with her being there, she has not spared a single glance to you, my bro. I almost called him something else. Oh God. Oh shoot. So it's just like, why are you so upset when she seems to be perfectly fine? Okay. Now moving to the final chapter, which is chapter 69, we have, I was actually very, is proud the word I want to use? Surprised for sure that the sect master of Xuanyuan sect wasn't just willing to give up Baili Qingmiao, that he was actually like, hold on. She doesn't do immoral things, and she's, a part of this sect, and she's treasured. You absolutely cannot have Baili Qingmiao. Because I was definitely expecting him to be like, well, sayonara, Baili Qingmiao. I was truly respecting that. And it's just crazy, because I remember when they were at the Violet Spirit Pavilion Masters, place or whatever, other than Wenzhao, the rest of everyone, from Liu Xinye, the disciples, her elder, I believe, Elder Qing something, whatever, they were willing to hand her over to the Violet Spirit Master for the Sect Master. So, whatever. Speaking of, though, it's just interesting to see how quickly people can turn on you just because of some rumors, which also, if I were Baili Qingmiao, I'd never want to return to Shangqing sect, because all it took was some malicious, vicious woman, Liu Xinye, spreading a rumor, and now everybody talking about you behind your back about how dirty, nasty, filthy you are with things that you have literally never done. But even if you did do them, they still shouldn't be going around saying all those things. But the sect has absolutely no respect for you. The sect members of the sect have no respect for you. And then the last thing that I want to comment on is just that I love how every time when Wenren is, possessing, this has only happened once, Baili Qingmiao's body or near her or something like that, or talking about the contents of the book, he knocks her out or whatever so that the readers don't know he's reading. I just thought, really randomly, it would be funny if the readers became aware that Wenren was aware of them reading the reading that he was reacting to while reading the book he was in and also reading, but then thinking about the fact that we are reading him reading these books and the reactions of the readers of the book that he's reading. And I'm just like, it's too many reads. So I thought that was funny. That apparently is my last note. And, I have to say, compared to how I felt this morning when I woke up, I do feel a lot better. So, I guess just to give you guys a quick update. Yes, my grandfather, he is in ICU, and they have said they've done all they can. He's not getting enough oxygen and a bunch of other things I don't want to go into because I've already spent yesterday and the day before not in a good place. So, I'm communicating with my dad to figure out when/how to go visit him this week, because we're not even sure, if he's going to make it to the end of this week or next week. I don't know. And so I'm trying to record as much as I can today. I did all of this recording in one day, which is Monday. I guess you guys will hear this on Thursday. But and I'm going to try to read some more later tonight and maybe even tomorrow morning so that you all can still have your content just in case I end up leaving and am not able to record. No, I'm not pushing myself or anything crazy like that. Honestly, reading this, I took the time away from reading when I needed it, got my ice cream and some other stuff, rode around outside with my husband. But the reading has honestly been a great distraction for me. So I'm reading a lot. So who knows? Maybe Friday's video will be just as long, or maybe it'll be 30 minutes. Or maybe it'll be just one chapter, or maybe it'll be the regular length of an hour long. Who freaking knows? But I just wanted to let you all know, just in case this week is, well, not this week really, but I guess this Friday or going into next Monday, just in case the schedule is off because of travels and stuff like that. So anyway, I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about these chapters. It was a lot of chapters, but about the same amount of content that you would get from a Monday video. So please let me know your thoughts and reactions. And I will see you guys on Friday, maybe not Friday, Monday, maybe not Monday, Tuesday, who knows. And yeah, well, oh, I'm sorry. One more thing. Because it was expressed in the text, but I just want to clear it up for you all. It was the saying from which He Wenzhao's name comes from, and that was 朝闻道, 夕死可以. So first off, for He Wenzhao's name, the Chao was changed to Zhao, but I'm going to slow it down just in case you all want to learn it, which again, it's basically Chao Wen Dao. So 朝闻道, 夕死可以. So basically, if you can learn right in the morning, then you can die in the evening without regrets. And it's to my understanding that this is an analect of Confucius. So again, that's 朝闻道, 夕死可以. 朝闻道, 夕死可以. And just so you know, 死 is death and 可以 is can. But anyway, so yeah, you learn in the morning, you can die without regrets in the nighttime. Okay, now this time it's 我爱你们.